Chapter 42, Resisting. Chapter 42, Resisting. Their talk took the entire day. Once Shuafan got hold of all the information that interested him, he walked Long Jiu out, after which he entered seclusion for a month to heal with Long Jiu's recovery pills. He was back to full health in 10 days, but was forced to spend the remaining time to patch up Blood Infant's precarious state a month later. Shuafan came out of his room stretching his limbs and enjoying the fresh air. Moreover, just a few days ago, he and Blood Infant entered the 5th layer of chi condensation, just that it was a pity one of the 2 elders from Hell Valley died for naught. He truly hoped he could absorb the elder's yuan chi at the time with it. He'd be in the bone-tempering stage by now. Stewardjua. Xiao Chui shrieked in joy seeing him, but then bolted Juefan was stumped, feeling his face unconsciously. Did something change about me? Why did she run as soon as she saw me? What's so scary about me? I'm not a man-eating monster. But he soon had it all figured out. I must have been too rough on her when I ripped their clothes that time, and this girl is now afraid of me. The same as how Luo Yunhai was before. Juefan snickered. I was kind of too hard on both the kids. Brother Jua, are you feeling better? This time it was the uncouth Captain Pang, old Pang. Captain Pang was the only one he admitted being his friend since he reincarnated. Juefan started to miss him after not seeing each other for a month, however. Just as Captain Pang was about to give him a friendly hug, his face changed, and away he ran this time. Juefan was floored. Forget that, lass. Xiao Chui, why is even old Pang avoiding me like a plague? Juefan frowned. Unable to get to the bottom of it, he was expert in reading people's intentions in negotiations and fights. But that was because he was convinced every man's actions were motivated by benefit, yet old Pang's behavior had him stumped. I've done nothing to hurt him, and he shouldn't have a reason for being scared of me. Then what's the deal with him running away? Juefan shook his head in puzzlement, but he wasn't in the mood to find out the reason. A man such as Demonic Emperor was a man of great action. Not bothered by petty affairs when he was about to leave, Lei Yuding appeared in his sight with a lunchbox, and Xiao Chui, running behind her cute body, hid behind Lei Yuding, peeking her small head to gaze at Juefan. What are you up to? Juefan stood in place. Puzzled, Lei Yuding walked with unsure steps, unlike the usual decisive nature she carried herself with. When she looked at Juefan, her cheeks were rosy. Steward Jua, thank you for saving me. Please accept this small token of appreciation. Juefan eyed the lunchbox with suspicion as he eased the lid open. A wonderful smell swept him. When the intricately made dishes prepared from the heart were in the open, what a wonderful smell. Juefan asked, where did you buy them from? Did Wingay's city have such a great restaurant? Humph, they weren't bought. Xiao Chui jumped out with a smile. Young Miss spent 10 hours each day making them and waited for Steward Jua to come out of seclusion to try them out. Every day, Juefan now unraveled the mystery of Xiao Chui running at the sight of him. It was to notify Lei Yuding not knowing when he'd come out. Lei Yuding cooked for him every day. Her perseverance moved him. Nodding, Juefan spoke, I accept your gift. Lei Yuding cupped her blushing face and whispered, Steward Jua just got well and needs to take care of his body. Hurry and eat before it gets cold. Right. Juefan returned to his room with the lunchbox. Even though he was in the chi condensation stage, not eating for a month made him hungry. Lei Yuding with Xiao Chui in tow followed him in. Her eyes shined like the sun, soft yet warm enough to melt a glacier. When Juefan was about to dig in, Luo Yunchang's charming figure entered the room with a knock. Captain Pang followed behind her, quirking an eyebrow. Juefan saw her carrying a lunchbox too. Oh, I didn't know Steward Jua already had someone bringing him breakfast. I was worried for nothing. When she saw the lunchbox in front of Juefan, Luo Yunchang's smile widened, but her eyes became sharp as if they were about to poke holes into everyone present. What got her in such a foul mood this morning? Juefan flickered his brow in confusion. But when he picked up on Captain Pang's pitying glance, it got him baffled. Bam. Luo Yunchang slammed the box in front of Juefan while squeezing a smile. Steward Jua, this is something I made for you to help in your recovery. I already have a share. I'm not a glutton to eat so much. Juefan shrugged, planning on pushing aside Luo Yunchang's box, but then he sensed killing intent. He caught Luo Yunchang's eyes glaring at him. I'll try both of them. Zhuo Fan flinched for the first time in his life. He didn't understand what the fuss was about, but knew that if he hadn't said that, there would have been a real danger to his life revealing Luo Yunchang's dishes. He found them scorched black, cutting most of his appetite. I think I'll eat this one. Zhuo Fan went for Lei Yuding's box as she showed a bright smile, but even before his hand reached it, Luo Yunchang bumped her box closer to him with a glare. Didn't you say you'll eat them both? Zhuo Fan's brow flickered, hesitation setting in as he took another long look at Luo Yunchang's burnt dishes, but he could hardly refuse her sincere eyes and nodded. All right, I'll eat them. Luo Yunchang broke out into a wide smile, to which Lei Yuding was showing disdain. Mine first. Luo Yunchang urged no mine. Lei Yuding said in haste. The two women's eyes met, and sparks seemed to fly. Zhuo Fan wondered, weren't they close? Why are they fighting all of a sudden? He couldn't comprehend what could bring such a change in them. First come, first served. Zhuo Fan then took a bite out of Lei Yuding's dishes. She was staring at him with wide and expectant eyes. Zhuo Fan gave a thumbs up. Delicious. Lei Yuding's smile bloomed like a flower while Xiao Chui pushed out her chin and shouted, my young miss started cooking since she was 10. No one in Wingay City can match her skill. You are fortunate today, Steward Zhua. Xiao Chui's boast embarrassed Lei Yuding, but even that couldn't take away the radiant smile from her face. Luo Yunchang pouted, Zhuo Fan, try mine. Zhuo Fan took a bite, but spat it out as soon as it touched his tongue. Even poison is better. His words were sharp as he took Lei Yuding's box. I still choose this one. Lei Yuding was smiling, while Luo Yunchang's eyes started tearing. Wow, such a great smell. At this time, Luo Yunhai shouted in surprise as he jumped into Zhuo Fan's room. Bro Zhui, you're out. And you are having such a feast. Why didn't you invite me? Go and eat your sister's cooking. Zhuo Fan dissed him. Luo Yunhai complained. Her skill isn't worth a dime. She doesn't know anything besides opening the kitchen door. Unable to stay there any longer, Luo Yunchang ran out with her lunchbox. But people could see the droplets she left behind on the floor. Was I wrong? Luo Yunhai was confused. Not all. Zhuo Fan gorged on Lei Yuding's cooking as he said, but some people have low confidence. After finishing his meal, Zhuo Fan informed the others before leaving. Stay here as Hell Valley's people might still lurk around. I'm going to pay Veiled Dragon Pavilion a visit. Luo Yunhai and Captain Pang nodded, then turned to Lei Yuding. Seeing her all flushed, Xiao Chui was even more excited. How great! Young miss, Steward Zhua is interested in you. Lei Yuding only smiled at the same time. In the imperial city, in a magnificent office, two people sat side by side. One man was in his 40s, dressed in a white silken robe. He had a small hanging mustache that shook with his smile. The other man was in his 50s, with a somber complexion and wearing a dark cloak. His pair of large eyes were filled with grievance. The two acted like strangers, not meeting each other's eyes. Cough, cough, cough. With a cough, a shaky body appeared before the two. It was an old man dressed in a golden robe embroidered with 9 dragons. Your Majesty. The men rose up and bowed. The elder waved for them to sit. Veiled Dragon Pavilion and Hell Valley both are from the 7 noble houses, the pillars of the empire. What matter has made you request an audience with me? This elder was the emperor of Tianyu Empire. Your Majesty, Veiled Dragon Pavilion killed 2 of our Hell Valley's elders last month, breaking the 7 houses agreement. Your Majesty, please punish the Veiled Dragon Pavilion. The black-robed man complained, sneering. The middle-aged man spoke. Yuan Shan, you have some nerve complaining first. Your Hell Valley's elder infringed upon my Veiled Dragon Pavilion's domain. How are you going to explain it? Who is it that broke the 7 houses agreement first? One of my valley's disciple, Yu Quan, was killed in Wingay City. Can't I send an elder to bring the matter to light? Yuan Shan squinted. Long Yaifi, you are just making an excuse to exact revenge for what happened 2 decades ago. Ha ha ha. 20 years ago, you trapped Elder Geo in Drifting Leaves City and ruined his mystic eye. You accused him of entering your domain and breaching the 7 houses agreement. I didn't object. This time, however, it is your elder who entered mine. And not just one, but 4. Is this what you call investigation? Enough! The Emperor's cold shout came as his eyes flashed in anger. Both sides are in violation. This is my judgment. Veiled Dragon Pavilion shall withdraw from Wingay City. It is no longer part of your domain. Hell Valley and Veiled Dragon Pavilion's people are never to set foot in this city ever again. Your Majesty, the two cupped their fists, but the Emperor flicked his sleeve. This matter is settled. Withdraw. I no longer want to hear anything about the 7 houses, nor about internal disputes. Understood. None of them was willing to accept this conclusion, but retreated nonetheless when they were gone. The Emperor's eyes flashed. For Hell Valley's people to enter Wingay City, they must be privy to the 1,000-year-old secret. The Imperial City has always been a place of conflict, filled with the eyes and ears of every faction. This should be known to your Majesty. An aged voice replied from behind. The Emperor chuckled. It seems the plan has begun. Pearls will always shine, Chapter 43. A Stubborn Fatty. Chapter 43. A Stubborn Fatty. Since the Veiled Dragon Pavilion's grand gate was but a few hundred steps away, Zhou Fan chose to walk, however. He stopped before passing through it. In front of the gate was a yellow palanquin with 4 peak chi condensation cultivators as carriers and 16 bone-tempering cultivators surrounding it. A fat figure in yellow stood in front of the palanquin. You could barely make out his pin-sized eyes from his bulging cheeks. At first glance, one would take him as having a bun in place of his head. Zhou Fan shook his head. He'd seen his fair share of people, but this was his first encountering such a fatso. How can one get so fat? Zhou Fan resumed his gait, glancing at the fatty from time to time. His appearance was far from attractive, but his 7th chi condensation cultivation and the large number of guards was nothing to scoff. If the fatty was from Veiled Dragon Pavilion, he'd have gone in by now. Wait. Zhou Fan's entry was stopped by a sudden shout. Turning around, he caught the sight of Fatty's feet sinking into the ground with each step towards him. Zhou Fan's cheek started twitching. Do you need something? Are you from Veiled Dragon Pavilion? The fatty smiled. It would have been better if he hadn't, as his eyes were now gone for good. Zhou Fan was shocked by such a baffling appearance for a moment. I'm just a guest. That means you can also enter. The fatty showed a warm smile. Can I ask brother's help with a small matter? Please send word to young Miss Long Kuei. She hasn't come out for a whole day, and I had to sleep outside. This weird fatty is pursuing Long Kuei. Zhou Fan wanted to laugh, but he couldn't, not when there were so many people around. To think that haughty Long Kuei knows this fellow. Setting aside his status, his weight alone would make her awkward if someone caught them together. All right, I will tell her right away. Zhou Fan struggled not to laugh as the fatty cupped his hands in gratitude. I'll leave it to brother. Zhou Fan hastened his pace in fear of laughing if he spent one more moment with this guy. It wasn't worth it offending a great faction for such a reason. He soon arrived at the meeting room and met Long Kuei. Miss Kuei, long time no see. How have you been? Great, until you showed up. Long Kuei snorted. Zhou Fan didn't mind it. Where's Brogio? I want to speak with him. Ow! Long Kuei rolled her eyes. Zhou Fan read her face and found that she didn't lie. Since he didn't see Long Jie either, it meant that he must be with Long Zhou on business. This would put a delay on the things he wanted to know. But he still had that fatty's message to deliver. To get that guy's gratitude and support, all I have to do is make this smug girl see him. What's the harm in passing the time while embarrassing this missy while I'm at it? Zhou Fan showed a wide grin. What's with you? Long Kuei frowned. Oh, nothing. There's a rich, handsome guy outside who wants to talk to you. Hurry up and see him before he's gone. Hey, Miss Long, who's he? Zhou Fan elbowed her with raised eyebrows. Long Kuei knew Zhou Fan was making fun of her and got angry. Ignoring him, she walked to the gates with Zhou Fan laughing behind her. Damn fatty. Haven't I rejected your marriage proposal already? What are you still doing here? The fatty's smile fell. Sister Long Kuei, that happened when I was 10. Now I'm 20. Don't you feel anything after I proposed 1,000 times these past 10 years? Of course I have. Annoyance. Zhou Fan butted in at this point, patting the fatty's shoulder as he looked at Long Kuei. Miss Long Kuei, Such tender and strong love are rare these days. My dear friend is so smitten by you that he even slept outside waiting for you." The last words almost made Zhuo Fan burst in laughter. The fatty was so touched that the thick sarcasm flew right past him. Long Kuei saw them working in unison, one explaining while the other agreeing, and felt her anger peaking. But for some reason, she changed to a charming smile. Even Zhuo Fan blanked out from seeing her smile like this for the first time. And there was no need to mention the drooling fatty. Long Kuei felt sick inside but still maintained her composure. "Brother Tsong, you've always treated me so well ever since we were little. But my heart belongs to another." "What? Who's the punk?" The fatty's face changed, and his eyes spat fire. Zhuo Fan thought, "Oh, she isn't planning on dragging me into this, is she?" Yet Long Kuei turned to him with an enigmatic smile. "Oh, hell." Zhuo Fan didn't know which faction the fatty belonged to, but one thing was clear: he wasn't to be provoked. Zhuo Fan already had Hell Valley as his enemy, and messing with another faction just as strong, if not stronger, then even Demonic Emperor would have a hard time turning disaster into an opportunity. "I was wondering why you were able to enter Veiled Dragon Pavilion like you own the place." "It was because you and Long Kuei are—" The fatty grabbed Zhuo Fan's collar and glared. Zhuo Fan denied. "Brother, it's all just a misunderstanding." However, the fatty's eyes were red from anger and blinded to reason. There were two things any man would go berserk from: having his father killed and wife stolen. But the latter caused way more outrage than the former, feeling as if he was wearing such a hat with no rhyme or reason turned this misunderstanding into a conflict. Zhuo Fan's side. "Now, I have to ask Long Jio to explain in order to avoid offending another power." He was pondering on how to do it when he was floored by Fatty's next words. "Sister Kuei, what do you not like about me? Does this punk have something that I don't?" Zhuo Fan almost spat blood, watching the fatty in a daze. "Brother, now I know why you proposed 1,000 times. Cocky people, he has seen aplenty." But this was Zhuo Fan's first time meeting one as oblivious about himself as this guy watching the fatty, who could burrow the earth just by standing. Zhuo Fan wanted to shout, "Brother, it's more like you packed something way extra than me." Even Long Kuei was silently rolling her eyes. "Brother Tsong, there must be some other reason for you to be here. You do not have the luxury of leaving the imperial capital as you wish. Take care of your matters and stop wasting time. That is out of the question. You're my future wife. I even applied for this task just to see you." Yet, then the fatty glared at Zhuo Fan. "Let's duel." He pointed at Zhuo Fan's nose as he raged. "We will duel today to settle Sister Kuei's groom." Zhuo Fan took a closer look at the fatty, secretly admiring him. "This kid is the first who didn't shout out his glorious clan's name before me." Just from this, Zhuo Fan liked him. Hearing the fatty request a duel, one of his guards stepped forward. "Young master, your body is too precious to participate in duels. It's best if you let me handle him." "Quiet," the fatty interrupted the guard. "It is I who want to marry Sister Kuei. My honor and dignity as a man are on the line. If you fight, I'll be mocked forever, and Sister Kuei will despise me even more. I will never ever approve of you." Long Kuei rolled her eyes. Zhuo Fan agreed with a grin. "Well said, I accept. However, all your guard are stronger than me, and I can't take even a single hit from them if they interfere. If I say we will duel, then it will be one-on-one. My word is gold. You don't believe me?" The fatty was even angrier now. Zhuo Fan shook his head. "I do believe you. But if I defeat you, can they hold themselves from not jumping in? At that point, even if you order them not to, it won't do much good." It was unknown if the fatty was pondering or fuming, since his eyes disappeared when he squinted. But then he barked at the guards, "All of you stay put. If anyone has the nerve to move, I'll kill him." Then he turned to Zhuo Fan. "Pick a location where we won't be disturbed." Zhuo Fan smiled while Long Kuei frowned and blocked him. "You truly intend to fight? If he gets hurt, even Veiled Dragon Pavilion can't help you." He just nodded. This fatty isn't bad. Long Kuei was stunned when the fatty saw them stick together. His heart was aflame from rage. Panting with each word, he declared, "Punk, you'll see. I will mop the floor with you." Zhuo Fan smiled, not minding in the least. Chapter 44, Assassin. Chapter 44, Assassin. Fan took the fatty to a remote place in the woods. Since Long Kuei was afraid of mishaps, she also went along, but Fan already had Blood Infant keep an eye out. At least the fatty's order worked like a charm, and the guard stayed behind. Fan clapped. "Fatty, I praise you for not using the guards." "Humph, I'm always true to my word. This is related to me and Sister Kuei's happy marriage. I will have to beat you, pesky Puck, so thorough you can't contest my victory. Or who knows what excuse you'll use later to pester Sister Kuei." The fatty jutted out his chin, smiling. Fan showed his vicious side. "Aren't you worried I laid an ambush?" The fatty frowned. His pin-sized eyes scoured his surroundings as he roared. "Humph, I'm willing to venture alone against any adversity, but if you think Sister Kuei will look kindly to such a despicable punk, think again. No matter what you have in store, I will never lose." "Ha ha ha. Enough with the heroism. Kid, I like you. It's time we get this duel started." Fan smiled, yet even before he finished, a punch came his way. Fan rushed to dodge, but he was too late to react. His body flew, and his right cheek was now red and swollen. "Hey, Fatso, I thought you were an honorable man." Fan snapped at the nonchalant fatty, who replied, "Didn't you just give start to the duel? All is fair in love and war." Fan took a long look at him and secretly nodded. This kid is more cunning than he lets on, yet he conducts himself with honor. He is as honest as Old Pang, but that is where the similarities end. Compared to the simple Old Pang, Fan, like the shrewd fatty, more a demonic cultivator, would use any means to reach his goal. This fatty, who bent the limits of morality, was more to Fan's liking. "Ha, you're right." Fan cackled and pointed at Long Kuei. "Fatty, look, Long Kuei is undressing." The fatty could spot a lie when he heard one, but he still bought it this time and turned towards Long Kuei's direction. Bam. Fan used this chance to kick the fatty into the air. "Bastard." Long Kuei fumed at the sideline with a red face. Yet the culprit didn't mind it in the least when her glare focused on him. "Wretched punk, you dared sully Sister Kuei's honor. I will show you." The fatty wobbled as he got to his feet, but his eyes burned hotter than ever. Fan dissed him. "I was just messing around, yet you looked anyway. Weren't you also thinking something shameful about our young Miss Long?" The fatty gasped. Never had he heard this kind of counter before. Fan might have disrespected Long Kuei, but didn't he himself sully his goddess by imagining something inappropriate? If so, did he have the right to blame Fan? Fatty's resentment was gone just like that, and he even felt ashamed. But once he imagined Long Kuei changing clothes, his face went beet red. His small eyes were perfect in hiding his secret stare over Long Kuei's enticing figure, but she found him out nonetheless and stared him down with killing intent when a shiver crawled up his spine. The fatty focused on the fight. "Punk, I will let this matter slide. Time to get serious." The fatty's body gave out a golden shine, and even the ground started cracking around him. High mortal ranked martial art. Mountain shaking punch. The fatty darted towards Fan like a raging bull, cracking each and every stone he set his foot on. "Punk, better dodge. But if you do, admit your loss." Grinning, Fan extended a red palm. Not intimidated in the least, the fatty raved. "Damn, punk, this will be your funeral. I am at the 7th layer of chi condensation and using a high-ranked martial art. This is not a move which a 5th layer chi condensation punk can withstand. If you treasure your life, dodge." But Fan didn't budge. The fatty didn't wish for the worst outcome and wanted to hold back some of his power, but it was too late now. His flabby body was already upon Fan. Boom. Something strange happened. The weak-looking Fan was still standing as a breeze ruffled his hair. The fatty, however, had his golden light scattered thanks to the red glow and was sent flying. He hit the ground in a daze, and even as he got up, he still couldn't shake his astonishment. "How can this be? I'm clearly stronger, so why was I the one who got pushed back?" He needed a long time to recover from the shock. Long Kuei scoffed. She didn't like Fan one bit, but that didn't stop her from admiring his strength and ability. After all, he was the first on the continent to have killed 2 profound heaven expert, While being a chi condensation cultivator arriving next to Fatty, Zhuofan offered his hand with a smile. Fatty, I know you went easy on me. The Fatty sighed. A loss is a loss. Using all my power against someone weaker is the same as losing. I am an upright man. This is your win. Zhuofan turned serious. You might take it as being upright, but I see it as kindness. The Fatty looked closer at Zhuofan. He was amazed this man found out his intention in that split second. I see now why Sister Kuei likes you. The Fatty praised him and took Zhuofan's hand. He went to Long Kuei and sighed. Sister Kuei, you found a great man. This punk will turn into a monster one day. The Fatty felt dejected, but a sudden sound broke the silence. Zhuofan squinted his eyes and pushed the Fatty to the ground. A green light passed above them the next second, cutting all the trees in its path. The Fatty looked up at Zhuofan with gratitude. Brother, thank you for saving me. I never thought that my love rival will become my savior. It's too early for thanks. Here they come. Zhuofan frowned as he helped the Fatty up. Long Kuei also ran next to them. A dozen men appeared around the three of them the next moment, each giving off the energy of a bone-tempering expert. What now? Long Kuei's expression was grave as she looked at Zhuofan. With the Veiled Dragon Pavilion being even farther than the Fatty's guards, the only one she could turn for help was the guy she disliked the most. But he was also the one most likely to pull off a miracle. The Fatty strode out from between the two with confidence. It's me you're after. Let them go. Hi. As a member of the Imperial family, you sure have the air of a king. But too bad we can't leave any witnesses. A man stood out from the group. He was their leader. The Fatty was filled with hatred suddenly. Zhuofan kicked the Fatty with a snicker. This Fatty is under my care. If you want to kill him, you'll have to go through me first. The dozen men laughed. A mere chi condensation insect wants to act tough. Since they'll all die anyway, let's start with him. It's best we kill the Fatty first and complete the mission. It was hard enough finding this opportunity after waiting for so long. We can't let it go to waste. As they were rambling on, the Fatty whispered to Zhuofan, Brother, they're after me. I will run towards east while you take Sister Kuei back to Veiled Dragon Pavilion. Zhuofan shook his head. With your speed, you won't even last 1 second. What other choice do we have? Asked the Fatty. Flustered, Zhuofan hardened his tone and said, Slaughter them all. He took a step and reached their leader as Savage Moon flashed in his hand, demonic treasure. The leader was shocked and wanted to dodge, but a red light entered his body and froze his movements. Whoosh. With a silver flash, a head trailed the sky, followed by a fountain of blood. Only Zhuofan stood in the pool of blood with cruel eyes for the first time in Fatty's life. His eyes bulged out from his chubby face, becoming larger than ever. Chapter 45, Slaughter. Chapter 45, Slaughter. The silence was deafening. Everyone watched slack-jawed at the unfolding event. No one there could have imagined a chi condensation kid blindsiding them, who were bone-tempering experts, and even killing one in a single hit. All the mockery and disdain they had for Zhuofan was now replaced with extreme caution. Fatty was still out of it, staring at Zhuofan like his brain was on the fritz. It finally dawned upon him that it wasn't him who held back the most in their duel, but Zhuofan killed the punk first. With a sudden shout, the men charged at Zhuofan together. They were now of one mind, no longer of a different opinion. They had to kill this dreadful and sinister punk first. If they were to leave him for later, they were sure they'd have to pay a steep price. Even if they outnumbered him, they had long forgotten their main objective and were now pointing their weapons at the punk who was holding Savage Moon and standing in a pool of blood, smiling wryly. Zhuofan snickered. I wouldn't have it any other way. The next moment, he jumped at the first enemy. The man was startled and rushed to retreat. Even if Zhuofan was just in the chi condensation stage and unable to hurt him, the third-grade demonic treasure would cut through him like butter. Their leader got such a miserable death for underestimating Zhuofan, and he wasn't willing to make the same mistake. With eyes fixed on Savage Moon's trail, the killer grinned. He knew how to deal with Zhuofan. Since his speed was superior to Zhuofan, all he needed to do was pay attention to Savage Moon, and killing this kid would be a breeze. However, just as he was about to jump into action, Savage Moon flashed a silver glow. The light wrapped around Fan and then streaked by the killer's body. The killer had no idea what happened and was looking up as his upper half slid to the ground while his lower half stood there unmoving. While he fell, he could still see Fan's grim face, especially the eyes, cold and unfeeling. Everyone sucked in a cold breath as they watched Fan with dread, if one were to say that killing their leader was from a sneak attack. This time around, it was a fair fight, and yet Fan still killed a bone-tempering expert in an instant when the silver light flashed again. He was so fast that none of the killers had time to react before Fan felt another such horrifying speed, coupled with the sharp edge of the savage moon, soaked the backs of the killers in a cold sweat. As you dare to come look for trouble in my domain? Fan squinted at each man around him and trailed a finger across his neck as his eyes turned red. Your lives are forfeited. At that moment, all of them paled and stepped back. The fear they felt from his eyes mounted the dread they already had. Their roles began to blur as it became unclear who was the victim and who was the killer. The hunters and prey's role were now switched. The fatty watched Fan's domineering gaze while being shell-shocked. Then, he was swept by a sudden familiar feeling. The imposing and grand feeling he felt only from his father, but what he felt from Fan was far more assertive. As if all who dared resist this man would find themselves dead beyond a shred of a doubt. The pressure Fan's power released was something that even made him shiver, seeing that they couldn't contend with Fan individually. A killer shouted, "Don't be afraid. Let's attack together. He's just a chi condensation punk relying on a third-grade demonic treasure. If we surround him, he's done for." The others nodded as fear eased from their faces. Now that they had a plan, they found hope with a cry. The killers jumped at Fan, closing the net on him, sneering. Fan rushed forward without fear as he held Savage Moon. His target swallowed dryly, but didn't retreat since he had men on each side releasing punch at Fan. If Fan pressed on, the killer would die, but so would Fan under the joint attack of two bone-tempering experts. But if he retreated instead, it would only work to tighten the net, and his death would be just a matter of time. Fan didn't plan on dying in this fight, or he would have fled a long time ago with the help of Savage Moon's speed boost whoosh. With a flash of silver, Fan vanished from their sights, and the punches hit nothing but air. Fan then landed right in front of the killer, who was standing behind the other two, having not seen this coming. The killer was frightened, but soon became elated, seeing that Fan was not facing him. He didn't waste his chance and punched towards Fan's defenseless back. "Your head is mine, kid." But a silver light flashed by, and the man froze in the moment of impending doom. Fan swept Savage Moon around him and jumped from their tight circle. As for the man behind Fan, he watched wide-eyed as his body hit the ground in two pieces, blood and guts spilling everywhere. Another one. Even under their joint efforts, Fan came out unscathed and robbed them of another comrade. Fear in their eyes mounted higher and higher. They had some hope before, wishing to kill him with numbers. But that hope was now lost. What kind of freak is he? When did the 7 noble houses have such a person? A killer cursed as he felt his knees trembling, secretly sneering. Fan squinted his eyes and bathed the world with the killing intent they contained. These killers were routed. They lost their nerve and were no longer a threat. Now was the perfect time to end them. Fan rushed forth with a savage grin. Silver light flickered as Fan brandished Savage Moon and sent limbs flying with each passing. The killers cried during their futile attempts to evade. Having lost any and all will to resist, Fan was like a wolf among sheep, taking his fill of slaughter and carnage. For the occasional spirited and still brave souls among them, Blood Infant would enter their body and seal their movements, thus priming them for Fan, only to leave them mangled. If it was any other day, with Fan's strength and Blood Infant's help, he could only fight with a single bone-tempering expert. If another joined, he'd have a hard time reacting to their attacks, let alone killing a dozen. But luck had it he got Savage Moon off Elder Yin, whom he killed a month ago. This gave him newfound confidence. Savage Moon was just as deadly as Blood Infant was on bone-tempering experts, perhaps even more, especially when taking its ability to increase one's speed into consideration. And all of this was added to Fan, who already had the skills to skip stages now that he thought about it. He really ought to thank Hell Valley for throwing such a nice toy in his lap, hearing the bone-tempering expert's miserable wails, watching heads and entrails flying about. The fatty remained lifeless from shock. He stood there witnessing the gruesome dance Shuafan was performing with Savage Moon. For these killers to cry and beg for their lives was something unheard of. He could hardly believe that the man he recognized as a love rival, the man he challenged, was strong to this degree. Recalling their duel, it seemed more like a joke now. The bone-tempering experts were butchered like animals in front of the fatty. Seventh-layered chi condensation cultivator dared to issue a challenge, and still was lenient with him while preaching fairness. Sai, Yuan Tsong, your lenient act and fairness preaching was meaningless. The fatty shook his head, feeling mournful. He had seen many peers among the 7 houses who were geniuses, and even if he wasn't stronger than them, he believed their strength wasn't far from his. But Zhuafan showed him today what the saying "a man above man and a sky above a sky" meant. Those geniuses were nothing but trash by comparison. Furthermore, the gap was so huge at such a young age. Long Kuei covered her mouth, experiencing the greatest shock she ever felt. This was the first time she saw Zhuafan fighting. She had heard of him killing 2 profound heaven experts, but doubts still existed. This notion was far too outrageous for anyone to believe. But watching him fight today left this young miss stunned. The cruelty, the overbearing eyes, it was as if a demon had descended, one which was capable of scaring and overpowering even bone-tempering experts. Whoosh. When Zhuafan finally stopped, Savage Moon, his hand was dripping blood. The dry earth around him had become a wide pool of blood. A killer shivered as he watched the Savage Moons fall with dread. His legs were severed, but the pain wasn't registered, as begging was all that was left on his mind. Not sparing him a glance, Zhuafan asked coldly, "Who sent you?" Zhuafan's eyes didn't reflect an ounce of pity towards any living creature in this world. Only coldness. The killer looked around to see his dead brothers, and fear swept his heart. He didn't know where to begin describing the savagery and cruelty of this youth before him. This youth was, in all sense of the word, a demon. The killer's heart was in shambles. But a sudden whistling sound was heard, and the killer's eyes lost its light. Killing with intent, a radiant stage expert. Zhuafan drew a cold breath. His bottomless and cold eyes now showed a ripple of panic. Chapter 46, Alliance. Chapter 46, Alliance. The whistling sound was heard clearly by everyone, but none could afford to slack their guard. On the contrary, each felt their heart in their throat. A radiant stage expert was able to kill with divine intent alone. This was an enemy Zhuafan wouldn't be able to defeat, even with Blood Infant and Savage Moon. An icy shiver traveled down his spine as Zhuafan turned more and more serious. Whoosh. The whistle stopped suddenly, and a pair of steps echoed. Zhuafan and the other 2 forgot to breathe. Their eyes were fixed towards the sound's location, but when the person came out into the open, the fatty was stunned for a second before shouting, "Teacher, how come you're here?" Long Kuei cried with joy, "Senior Fong, what brought you here?" Zhuafan saw the 2, recognizing the new entrant, and began sizing him up. The man had a goatee and looked like he was in his 60s. He was dressed in a blue robe and had a sword strapped to his back. All this time, he was smiling as the green jade flute revolved in his hand. The jade flute shocked Zhuafan. He remembered something and asked, "Are you one of the 5 divine dragons, the guardians of the imperial family, jade flute divine sword, Fong Qiubai?" Zhuafan heard Long Jiu mention that even if the imperial family could no longer control the 7 houses, they could still persevere, all thanks to the 5 divine dragons. Each was a peak radiant stage expert whom none of the 7 houses would dare mess with among them. There was a man known as the First Divine Sword, and he was Fong Qiubai, Jade Flute Divine Sword. He boasted himself as having united the sword and the flute as one, that his sword followed the sound and turned it into sword intent. One time, he single-handedly defeated 5 radiant stage experts with a sword strike, forcing the 7 houses to forget about testing him, while also spreading his name to the 4 corners of the world. The man raised an eyebrow and watched Zhuafan with a profound look before nodding with laughter. Long Jiu appeared before everyone. Wasn't I right? This kid has sharp eyes. I only mentioned you once, and he already recognized you. Uncle Gio. Long Kue was overjoyed as she ran to him. When did you and Senior Fong arrive? Why didn't you come out sooner? Ah, we've been here since Brother Zhua and the third prince's duel. Long Gio turned to Zhua Fan. Brother Zhua, you're quite something to keep a straight face against a dozen bone-tempering experts. When I was your age, I certainly lacked the courage you showed today. I truly admire you. Long Kue pouted while casting a side glance toward Zhua Fan. Seeing Zhua Fan in action had her convinced, but admitting it was a whole nother matter. Master, with you two seniors here, why didn't you act? You almost worried your student to death. Fatty clapped his fat chest. It mattered little what happened to me, but what if Sister Kei got hurt? Ah, and miss a good show? Fong Xiaobai laughed, eyeing the calm and collected Zhua Fan. Moreover, I've never seen such a genius marvelous display before. Senior, you're too kind. Zhua Fan cupped his hands, but his face was stone cold. I'm only curious. Why did Senior kill the last one? Is it? Fong Xiaobai squinted and his smile turned fake as he spoke in a frosty tone. Youngster, you are exceptionally sharp, but your strength might turn this advantage into a flaw. Raising an eyebrow, Zhua Fan laughed and cupped his hands. Junior, thanks for Senior's lesson. Junior has already forgotten this encounter. Zhua Fan picked up on Fong Xiaobai's warning. He did not wield enough power to poke his nose in their conflict. The man had silenced the killer to protect him. Fong Xiaobai took one more long look at him, and his admiration grew. You're not only smart, but also know when to retreat. How rare. What a surprise, finding someone like you in the mortal world, yet outside the seven houses. If you weren't a demonic cultivator, something I'm unsuited with, I would have wanted to teach you for 2 years and make your future limitless. Long Kue and Fatty were shocked. Outsiders may not know who Fong Xiaobai was, but the seven houses were crystal clear on his character. Who among the heads of the seven houses didn't want to have their child under his tutelage? But this old man was stubborn as a mule, not giving them any attention. Even if the emperor were to request him on behalf of his sons, he'd act no differently. He'd been teaching the Fatty for 3 years because Fong Xiaobai appreciated his strong will, yet the Fatty barely learned a few moves. But it wasn't enough to accept him as a disciple, yet the first time he laid eyes on Zhua Fan, Fong Xiaobai took the initiative to invite him. If the two had walked the same cultivation path, Zhua Fan would have been Divine Sword's first disciple wherever he'd go. If any seven houses disciple saw him, they'd have to bow down to him. Long Gio saw the two kids shock and surmised their thoughts with a shake of his head. These kids are yet to reach our level, so they don't know the meaning of rare find. With Zhua Fan's talent, any expert who saw him would want to take him as a disciple. Even if one was unrivaled in the world, to pass on his mantle, he needed to find the best disciple suited for his legacy. The greater the strength of the expert, the higher the expectation. But Zhua Fan shook his head at this, and even sneered. Forget about Fong Xiaobai not accepting him because of cultivation path difference. Even if he could be accepted, he'd still refuse. As a demonic emperor, the only one worthy of him calling master was an emperor stage expert. Fong Xiaobai was reluctant to let Zhua Fan pass by him, but in the end he took Fatty and left. Long Gio, third prince, still has a task to complete, so I'm taking him with me. Fong Xiaobai and Fatty disappeared the moment he finished. Wait, Fatty still wanted to say something to Long Kue and Zhua Fan, but it was too late. 1 second his anxious face was there, and the next it was gone so fast. Zhua Fan was shocked. Then he hardened his resolve. He had to reach Radiant Stage as soon as possible to guarantee his safety in his travels across the continent. Brother, Long Zhou walked to Zhua Fan with a solemn face. Come with me to Veiled Dragon Pavilion. There's something I have for you. Smiling wryly, Zhua Fan nodded. He had anticipated this. 15 minutes later, Zhua Fan and Long Zhou were in Veiled Dragon Pavilion's meeting room, and Long Zhou pushed an unwilling Long Kue to guard the door outside. Long Zhou took out a sheepskin branded with 4 dragon marks. The first words that Zhua Fan recognized were alliance agreement skimming through it. A pleasing smile bloomed on his face. This was what he aimed for from the start, an alliance between Veiled Dragon Pavilion and the Luo clan. Veiled Dragon Pavilion would not only become a support for the Luo clan, but would also provide resources without any conditions attached if the agreement came into effect. He'd be worry-free from any outside attacks, and would have the time to develop the Luo clan into a great power. Long Jiao was a bit astounded. Why do I feel like you knew this was coming? Zhuo Fan smiled. It had nothing to do with predicting, but planning. Once he settled on having Veiled Dragon Pavilion as an ally, he used the ancient array diagram to entice Long Jiao, then took advantage of Veiled Dragon Pavilion in sticking its neck out for him. But that wasn't an alliance. It was just the Luo clan seeking shelter. When faced with great danger, Veiled Dragon Pavilion would have kicked them out to avoid the worst outcome. He and Veiled Dragon Pavilion fought side by side, and even killed 2 profound Heaven Elders. He risked offending the Hell Valley to show the potential of the Luo clan. His aim was an alliance agreement of equals. If he were alone, he would have avoided showing off by fighting 2 profound Heaven experts and amassed fortune instead. If Veiled Dragon Pavilion's Pavilion Lord was a man of vision, he'd choose alliance, because he would know that the alliance offered now was like fire and winter for the Luo clan. But if offered in the future, it would be more like decoration, one among many. As such, Zhuo Fan made a daring gambit. Gambling if the Pavilion Lord was a man of ambition who did not bother with trifles, and willing to make an ally out of fallen clan. Fortunately, he won. Of course, if he lost, then Zhuo Fan would cross Veiled Dragon Pavilion from the list of future potential allies. Just because their leader lacked the bravery and ambition of one. Zhuo Fan smiled as he rolled up the sheepskin. I will now take it to young Miss for signing. Wait. Long Jiao gripped his shoulder. Sign it here and now. Zhuo Fan smiled. I'm not the clan head. Signing it as a steward will make it void. With a sly smirk, Long Jiao looked at Zhuo Fan in the eye. Pavilion Lord said this agreement is not with the Luo clan, but with Zhuo Fan. Frowning, Zhuo Fan stared hard at Long Jiao. Wherever Zhuo Fan is, that place is Veiled Dragon Pavilion's ally. Long Jiao spoke. This is Pavilion Lord's intent. Zhuo Fan frowned, then smiled with a nod. Pavilion Lord sure is ambitious. Ha ha ha. In the dead of night, Zhuo Fan returned to the small courtyard and looked for Captain Pang. Old Pang, where's Missy? I'm looking for her. Sighing, Old Pang muttered, I'll take you to her. Zhuo Fan was taken aback, but followed. Nonetheless, the two entered the kitchen, and Zhuo Fan looked at Captain Pang in puzzlement. When the latter pointed at Luo Yunchang, Zhuo Fan saw the chaos inside the kitchen and Luo Yunchang, who had fallen asleep next to the stove. Her face even had traces of soot. Sigh, young Miss kept asking the cook for guidance from morning till late into the night. Captain Pang sighed, blaming Zhuo Fan a little. Steward Zhuo, I know of your skill, and that young Miss and young Master do not enter your eyes. But you must know, young Miss worked hard day in day out for a whole month to cook for you, so that you could have them when you come out of seclusion. But her efforts were not appreciated. Instead, she received your harsh criticization. Any girl would have been devastated after such a response. Ignoring Captain Pang's rant, Zhuo Fan walked next to the stove where the few dishes Luo Yunchang made laid. Compared to those at noon, these dishes were almost burned. Zhuo Fan took a bite and shook his head. She has no talent whatsoever. Sigh, even so, at least show some consideration for her work. Captain Pang rebuked as he walked next to the dishes and tried one. How hard can it be to swallow? He also took a bite and chewed it just once before spitting it right back out. You're right, Steward Zhuo. Young Miss is inept at cooking. Sorry for blaming you. Captain Pang wiped his mouth and walked out with a red face, but when he turned back, he saw Zhuo Fan taking one bite after another, and even savoring it. Steward Zhuo, don't force yourself. Ignore what I said. Now that I've also tried young Miss cooking, it's indeed. Captain Pang's mouth clamped shut and his face twisted. I'm just a bit hungry. Zhuo Fan smiled as he ate everything. Chapter 47, Imperial Family's Invitation. Chapter 47, Imperial Family's Invitation. In the morning, a ray of sunshine entered the small courtyard's kitchen. Luo Yunchang's eyelids trembled as she opened her drowsy eyes. She looked around the kitchen and smiled dejectedly. Last night, she was so tired after cooking that she fell asleep in the kitchen itself. Even if anyone caught wind of this, no one would believe it. A chi condensation cultivator tiring herself out from cooking? But the truth was she was too fatigued that she would rather pick cultivation instead of cooking. Just as she was getting up, she froze. Someone had put a plain cover on her, and her back wasn't leaning on the hard stove, but on something soft instead, pursing her lips. She turned her head only to see a sleeping Zhua Fan leaning on her. And what kept her back soft was his arm. Ah! Luo Yinchang was about to yelp, but she covered her mouth. It never crossed her mind that Zhua Fan would spend the night with her here blushing. Luo Yunchang observed his face and wanted to take advantage of this opportunity. Young Miss' red lips were inching ever closer to his face. Steward Zhua, young miss. A sudden rough shout came from Captain Pang. Zhua Fan's eyelids trembled and were about to open. Luo Yunchang immediately laid her head back on his shoulder and faked sleeping without budging. Just that her red face betrayed her, as if she'd done something she shouldn't. Zhua Fan opened his eyes, took a deep breath, and frowned when he saw Captain Pang coming in. Old Pang, what's the rush? Brother Zhua, young miss. Captain Pang pointed at Luo Yunchang with shock. Zhua Fan turned to see Luo Yunchang's red and shivering face. He touched her forehead. It's burning up. Did she catch a cold? Shaking his head, Zhua Fan blamed himself last night. He wanted to take Luo Yunchang back to her room, but afraid of waking her up, he chose to watch over her in the kitchen. He didn't think sleep would cast its spell on him too. Old Pang, say what you came to say. Meanwhile, I'll take this missy back to her room. Zhua Fan carried Luo Yunchang, but Old Pang was panicking. You can't, Brother Zhua. Someone wants to invite young miss for a chat. Someone we can't offend. What can't offend? She won't be going even if the Veiled Dragon Pavilion asked. Zhua Fan snapped. Can't you see she has lost consciousness? She must be sick. Wait for a bit, and I'll go see the guest. Sigh, Brother Zhua, Steward Zhua. Young miss must go meet him in person. He bears the Imperial Golden Seal. Captain Pang, shouted Zhua Fan, stopped. Only the Imperial family's guards had this seal. Even the 7 houses' leaders would have to respond at once, or they'd have committed a grave crime. The lightest punishment was death, while the harshest was dragging one's whole clan with him, of course. With the 7 noble houses' power, the Imperial family would refrain from resorting to such methods. But that didn't apply to a fallen clan like them. Zhua Fan squinted and thought it through. Old Pang, tell him young miss is unwell and that he should come back tomorrow. What? Captain Pang's heart jumped in fright. That person carries the Emperor's edict. If you do this, it is the same as saying you don't want to talk to him. But Zhua Fan had it thought out. Thinking back to last night, he guessed the one calling him over was that Fatty's guard. The Fatty was a good man and wouldn't let emotions cloud his judgment. Slaughtering innocents left and right. Do what I said now. Zhua Fan raised his voice. Wait. Luo Yunchang yelled, struggling out of Zhua Fan's embrace, and spoke with a stern face. Captain Pang, tell him to wait a moment to make myself presentable. Understood. Captain Pang bowed and secretly rejoiced. Thank God. Young miss woke up, or who knew how much trouble Brothers' arrangement would have stirred up. But this steward was sure is dauntless. If I were to follow his words, I'll die of fright. Captain Pang shook his head, and left. Zhua Fan watched Luo Yunchang skeptically. How did she regain consciousness all of a sudden? Luo Yunchang rolled her eyes. Why are you so reckless? Is the Imperial family someone you can offend? To avoid him noticing anything, Luo Yunchang rushed away. Zhua Fan was left to walk alone to the living room, with doubt in his heart. He met with the man carrying the seal, a peak chi condensation cultivator. He was one of the porters to Fatty's palanquin. Are you Steward Zhua? My master is inviting you and young Miss Luo for a talk. The envoy cupped his hands, but the prideful attitude never left him. And either on purpose or otherwise, the Imperial Golden Seal flashed on his waist. Perhaps he was afraid they'd mistake him for someone other than the Imperial family's guard. Zhua Fan snorted. You're still soft thinking you can fake your arrogance around me. When I was faking it, you were still but an egg in your mother's belly. Zhua Fan didn't even look at him as he slumped in a chair, one leg over the other. The envoy's eyes swelled with rage. Is the Fatty's injury healed? Zhua Fan asked in passing. Fatty? The man was stunned. Then it hit him that Zhua Fan was calling his master Fatty. but the number of people in this world who dared to call him that was less than 10. Then he and Master are. His heart started beating a mile a minute, and the arrogance was gone from his eyes. My master did not mention any injury when he returned last night. Is that so? Juefan raised an eyebrow, then laughed. He must be thinking of his image. I punched him 30-odd times yesterday, and kicked him a dozen times more. There's no way he's fine. Don't you think so, too? That fatty must be faking it, so you guys won't laugh at him. Aha. Juefan quirked his eyebrows at the man. The envoy's lips twitched, unable to respond. But he was embarrassed nonetheless, right? Was that old goat Feng Qiubai still angry after he arrived? Juefan looked at him carefully this time, but the envoy just shook his head. Feng Qiubai returned with his master yesterday, and only then did they find out about Feng Qiubai's arrival. Since Juefan knew this before them, it spoke how close he was with his master at this point. The envoy stashed the seal in his pants. It worked well in scaring some, but it was best to not make a fool of himself in front of such a young master like Juefan. Great. Seeing the envoy shaking his head, Juefan rejoiced. Perhaps you don't know, but that old goat wanted to take me as a disciple. If not for my staunch heart and me choosing death over kneeling, the old goat would have taken me away by now. I still thought he was angry and was going to come nag me again. Now that I know he isn't, I can rest easy. That old goat understands my predicament. What? Feng Qiubai wanted to take you as a disciple. The man shouted as his legs went soft and collapsed. Heavens! Who the hell is this young master? He's a friend that beat up master and also someone wanted as a disciple by Jade Flute Divine Sword Feng Qiubai, who the emperor shows respect to. Juefan secretly sneered. What's wrong? Why fall over? Let me help you. Juefan said so, but showed no intention of moving. The envoy was sharp enough to get back on his feet while waving his hand. No need, Steward Jue. I don't dare ask you of such a favor. I am not worthy. A servant's instinct. Juefan disdained. You call helping you get up a favor? Might you be the emperor's envoy? Luo Yinchang, dressed to impress, walked before him and bowed. The envoy rushed to kowtow. You are making it hard on me. Please don't be so courteous. If master heard I was disrespectful to his friends, he will punish me. Luo Yinchang was at a loss and turned to Juefan, who just shrugged, but Captain Peng, who was behind her, was stunned silly at the sight of the envoy's courteous attitude. Where's your previous haughty attitude? Spouting something like if young miss didn't come to see you in 15 minutes, you'd be executing all of us. Why the sudden change of tones? But even this change was too outrageous and polite. Captain Peng eyed Juefan, who only sported a puzzling smile. Old Peng figured Steward Jue had something to do with it and gave him a thumbs up. Only Steward Jue can make an imperial family's guard kowtow to our young miss. Juefan dismissed the envoy's courtesy. Why is that fatty calling me? I do not know. I was only ordered to invite Wingay's city's Kai clan, Lei clan, and Luo clan. The envoy spoke with extreme politeness. Juefan squinted. It seems that the Hell Valley targeting the 3 clans must have something to do with the imperial family. Chapter 48, Thousand-Year-Old Secret Edict. Chapter 48, Thousand-Year-Old Secret Edict. In a peaceful location within the forest, a kilometer from Wingay City, stood a remote courtyard. The 4 guards posted at the door were bone-tempering experts. Juefan and Luo Yunchang came along with Luo Yinhai and Captain Peng with the envoy as their guide. Steward Jue, young Miss Luo, please enter. The man was very polite. He opened the door, stood to the side, and bowed for them to pass. The other guards frowned with doubt and a flicker of scorn in their eyes. They were imperial family's guards, always welcomed with bows and courtesy everywhere. But this guy went to invite some no-name clan heads and even bowed down before them. He was seen as a disgrace by his fellow guards. The man picked up on scorn, but he just smirked. How can idiots know the importance these people hold? Steward Jue is master's friend, who even Senior Feng Qiubai has his eyes on. He needs to say just one word, and he'd be Feng Qiubai's disciple. Even the emperor will have to show respect then. As for the other 3, they're Steward Jue's friends. We can't show any disrespect even to them. Secretly snorting, The envoy still showed a flattering smile as he guided them inside. They soon arrived at a garden, a single pavilion laid in the middle with a stone table inside. Fatty sat in the seat of honor, and behind him stood Jade Flute Divine Sword. Fang Qiubai on one side of the Fatty was Lei Yuntian, with Lei Yuding and Xiao Chui behind him. On the other, it was Kai Rong and his son. Kai shouting there were two additional empty stools around the table, for Zhuo Fan and Luo Yunchang. This must be a meeting of the three clan heads. Zhuo Fan rubbed his nose and took a step back, letting Luo Yunhai take the lead. Broche. Luo Yunhai didn't understand, while Zhuo Fan smiled. Show them the dignity of a clan head, and don't let them look down on you. Luo Yunhai understood as Luo Yunchang showed a grateful look. It was clear this meeting was between the three clan heads and the imperial family. But after the events over the past few months, all of Wingay City knew that Luo clan's true clan head was Zhuo Fan. Even the imperial family might be considering Zhuo Fan as the master of the Luo clan. Zhuo Fan did this now so that he did not exceed his authority and was letting Luo clan come into the light. He wanted to state the fact Luo clan's clan head was still named Luo. Please come in. The envoy saw the third prince and bowed 90 degrees towards Zhuo Fan in a show of respect he had for his master's friend, but this had a different effect on everyone. The Fatty was stunned. Since when were the imperial family's guards so humble? Kai clan and Lei clan were of the same opinion when this guard came to invite them. He was brazen, cocky, and flaunting, not caring in the least who he was talking to. But towards the Luo clan, he treated them like guests. The two clans felt apprehensive in their hearts. They were even more envious. They were all clans of Wingay City, yet the treatment was worlds apart. Only Fang Qiubai smiled, guessing Zhuo Fan might have twisted facts to scare the envoy. But this only worked to admire him more under the envoy's polite call. The Luo clan stepped into the pavilion. Luo Yunchang greeted the Fatty. I am Luo Yunchang. Greetings, Your Highness. On the way here, the envoy told them of his master. The others followed Luo Yunchang in showing respect. But Zhuo Fan just shrugged. The Fatty only waved, not taking Zhuo Fan's disrespect seriously. Please sit. Luo Yunchang and her brother took a seat, while Zhuo Fan and Captain Pang stood behind them. Fatty threw a long look towards Zhuo Fan, secretly nodding. Great authority, but without any arrogance. He is a loyal subject. Fang Qiubai smiled with praise in his eyes. Zhuo Fan's conduct was etched in the two's hearts. Wielding his martial prowess to protect his master, and courteous enough to defend his master's honor. In the eyes of the imperial family, he was a rare and valuable official. The Fatty began. I have invited the three clan heads today, per the imperial edict, to reveal to you the 1,000-years-old relationship between the three clans. Everyone was focused on Fatty's next words. The three clan heads must have each received an instruction from the previous clan head to not make an enemy out of each other, and perhaps even mentioned about helping one another. Fatty stood up. Moreover, the three clans' power must never leave Wingay City until the pearls shine. Kai Rong and Lei Yuntian watched the Fatty in puzzlement. Luo Yunchang got a nod from her brother and also looked puzzled. Haha. In fact, this is an agreement between the founding imperial family 1,000 years ago and the three clan heads of that time, known as Secret Pearl Order. Fatty smiled and his eyes flashed. Kai clan, Luo clan, Lei clan, and the 7 noble houses are the same. They're all loyal officials, founders of the empire. What? Like a bomb was thrown on them. The three clans' representatives were shell-shocked. They never thought that their origins were the same as the 7 houses. But why had they fallen so low that they could only stay in Wingay City as mortal clans? The Fatty turned a bit bashful, guessing their thoughts. Sorry, this is what our human clan owes you. Sighing, Fatty continued. At that time, Tianyu Empire was just established and was shaky, with unrest among its people. The great ancestor and founder sent his 7 ministers across the kingdom to employ autonomous administration and settle the land. This gave them enough power to make them equal to the imperial family. They later became the 7 noble houses. In just 20 years, the 7 houses grew exponentially, and their greed ignited a war among them. The imperial family could no longer keep them in check and had to employ schemes in weakening them. The seven houses were ultimately aware that there will be no winners in their war and ceasefire. But the aftermath was cruel. The people were suffering, the empire was mourning, and it was just one step away from collapsing. But how is this connected to us? Zhuo Fan frowned, taking a deep breath. Fatty straightened his back. Everyone, to be honest, your clans are founders of our empire. If your elders were still sitting in the imperial court, they would be no less famous than the Four Pillars. Everyone sucked in a cold breath. Four Pillars were the support of the Tianyu Empire, leading the military, economy, politics, external affairs. They were the only ones capable of resisting the seven houses. There was a rumor. The Four Pillars' power was so strong it struck fear in the imperial family. For pillars and the seven noble houses represented the empire's highest power, but also restricting each other in a delicate balance. If one side tips, the balance would crumble and the empire would fall. No one could believe that their ancestors were so amazing and capable of becoming the empire's four pillars of today. The fatty lost his smile at this point. The great ancestor at the time set up the secret pearl order with your ancestors to prevent another war from breaking out among the seven houses. The emperor used all kinds of excuses to demote your ancestors to win Gay's city and become common clans. But the imperial family could, at any time, combine the three clans into a great clan equal to the rank of the seven houses. This would occur only when war broke out again between the seven houses. Then this new clan would add balance to the equation to save as many lives as possible. But even if an eighth house were to appear, it cannot stop the seven houses. Luo Yinchang voiced her doubts. Zhuo Fan cut Fatty off with a smile before he could speak. Young miss, the eighth house's purpose isn't to stop them, but to add balance. A war breaks out only when one side has absolute confidence in winning it. But a war in which winning was possible at a heavy cost won't happen unless the two sides hated each other to the bone. Sometimes, when two powers starts a conflict, it is very easily solved since no one wants to suffer irreparable damages. Luo Yunchang nodded, and the fatty praised Zhuo Fan. Steward Zhuo is amazing. Luo clan will rise for sure in your capable hands. Kai Rong's lips twitched from the regret he felt. If he hadn't offended Zhuo Fan, he might have been able to rope him. This kid was a genius, once in 1,000 years, third prince. We know of the relationship between the three clans. What I want to know is, how are you going to secure our rise to the 8th seat? Zhuo Fan stared at the fatty. Raising his brow, the fatty nodded in admiration. That's Steward Zhuo for you, hitting the nail on the head. Of course, the imperial family's power is enough to make a clan rise in a short time. The hard part, though, is how to keep it hidden. Zhuo Fan smiled. You think the seven houses would just watch us rise up to their level? Kai Rong and Lei Yuntian's backs went cold with sweat. They were elated that their ancestors had been imperial court officials. They were thinking, my clan will receive the imperial family's support to rise above a common clan. But Zhuo Fan brought them down to earth, not to mention growing stronger. The seven houses wouldn't even let the new clan grow to their level. They would be destroyed while they were at their weakest. Kai Rong and Lei Yuntian were grateful for Zhuo Fan's reminder. The imperial family wanted the seven houses' power and balance, but the three of them wanted to survive. Kai Rong had to admire Zhuo Fan's prudent mind. Chapter 49. Three Clans as One. Chapter 49. Three Clans as One. After muttering under his breath for a while, the fatty spoke. This was settled at the moment the secret order was given. What is a clan's foundation? Spirit stones? Pills? No, these are support items. Strength is the best guarantee of a powerful clan. Veiled Dragon Pavilion has its 9 outstanding elders. Hell Valley has its 12 elders as overseers. Each of the 7 houses has its own strength. Also, every one of them has invited a venerable, along with other secret weapons they're holding. Even we, the imperial family, don't dare stir them. Fatty's eyes then shined like a radiant sun. At the time, in order to paralyze the 7 houses, great ancestor confiscated the wealth of your clans. This is why none of you has any decent cultivation method and martial arts. It was also because of this reason the 7 houses withdrew their surveillance on you 500 years ago. Yet none of them would have thought that you all are still holding a low, profound, ranked martial art. Fatty showed a sneaky smile. With this martial art, all of you can become strong. Even the 7 houses only have 1 or 2 profound, ranked martial arts. The 3 clans were amazed. When did they have such a martial art? If they had it, they'd have used it to grow strong by now. Only Zhuofan's eyes rolled about. Recalling something with a vague smile, Fatty's hand flashed and revealed a green jade slip. This is a low mortal ranked martial art combining art. By itself, it holds no value. But if you use it along with your clan's spirit ranked martial arts you inherited, you can combine them into a single martial art of the profound rank. In other words, Luo clan's returning dragon palm, Kai clan's wind kick, and Lei clan's lightning finger were originally one single martial art that the imperial family split among the 3 clans. And only the imperial family knew the way to restore it. Zhuofan's squinted. Fatty was shocked, but then nodded. Steward Zhuo is wise. There aren't many martial arts which are capable of splitting other martial arts, and the number of martial arts that can restore them are even lesser. I didn't think Steward Zhuo would know of this. If Imperial Father hadn't mentioned it, I would have never found out. Zhuofan just smiled, perhaps because the splitting martial arts were uncommon even at the mortal rank. Each sect in the sacred domain seized them. They split their core martial arts to prevent degenerate disciples from spreading it. Only the sect leader's disciple had the right to learn the entire set of martial arts. Zhuofan turned to look at Kai clan and Lei clan. They were startled, but their eyes showed deep regret, perhaps because they were negligent in safeguarding their inherited martial arts and let the Hell Valley steal them. Especially with regards to Kai clan, who were quick to give it away. It must be really eating Kai Rong inside right now. Clan heads, please take out your inherited martial arts. Fatty placed the jade slip on the table with a smile, but only Luo Yunchang took out her clan's martial art. After Lei Yuding got to know of Yang Ming's treachery, she gave back the returning dragon palm to Luo Yunchang. But the other clan heads looked at each other in shame. Fatty frowned as he stared at them, sighing. Lei Yuntian cupped his hands. Your Highness, I was unable to protect my ancestors' martial art from Hell Valley's thieving hands. I accept your Highness' punishment. What? Fatty slapped the table. Kai Rong also cupped his hands. Your Highness, I am the same. Fatty's body shivered in rage. Why you? Just how are you both clan heads? Have you forgotten your ancestors' instructions? You should have defended it with your lives. The 2 kneeled. Please forgive us, Your Highness. Fatty sighed as he scratched his head. Kai Rong peeked at him. Your Highness, can't the imperial family bestow us another profound ranked martial art? Bestow your mom. Fatty couldn't hold it in and began raining curses and spitting all over Kai Rong's kneeling figure. What do you take profound ranked martial arts for, Cabbage? Even the imperial family has only 4 of them, and they're each registered. If I take one out, everyone will know. How are your clans going to rise then? You dumb pig, are you tired of living? Fatty gave Kai Rong a round of slapping, then stomped his feet. Kai Rong curled up and shivered on the ground. What now, what now? The secret pearl order is ruined. Fatty paced around. Zhuofan smirked, and 2 jade slips appeared with a flash in his hand. Third Prince, there's no need to worry. I have their clan's martial arts. What? The 2 clan heads shouted in unison, staring dumbfounded in Zhuofan's direction. Kai Rong in particular, having not witnessed Zhuofan's prowess, was incredulous at what was happening. Lei Yuntian gave Zhuofan a thankful nod. If not for him, not only Lei clan wouldn't recover, they'd even be executed in a fit of anger by Third Prince. Ha. Steward Zhuo, you truly are amazing. I see why Elder Geo of Veiled Dragon Pavilion speaks so highly of you. Fatty was overjoyed and ran into Zhuofan for a bear hug. If not for you, I would have failed Imperial Father's task. I owe you one. Smiling, Zhuofan shook his head. This is all for the Luo clan. Yes, right, for the Luo clan and for me. Fatty slapped Zhuofan's shoulder, then gathered the 4 jade slips. Now that we have the martial arts, next is the merger of the 3 clans. According to the great ancestors' secret pearl order, 2 clans are to merge with the strongest, and a profound ranked martial art will be in the clan head's care. As such, Your Highness, Kai Rong seemed hyped as he jumped to his feet. Luo clan has little strength and only 4 members, and Lei clan is on the verge of collapse. Only my Kai clan is flourishing. As such, I will begrudgingly accept this responsibility and support them under my clan's wing. As of now, I will take Lei and Luo clan as Kai clan's disciples and assist the imperial family in fulfilling the secret edict. As he finished speaking, Kai Rong reached for the jade slips, but a rough hand stopped him. Lei Yuntan glared at him as he asked Kai Rong, "How can a bone-tempering cultivator be enough to act as clan head?" So what? Based on strength, my clan is the best." Kai Rong raised his brows. "Don't be so sure." Lei Yuntian sneered at Kai Rong and looked at Lei Yunting. She showed a proud smile and stepped forward. "Clan head Kai, in this last month, I gathered all the scattered Blackwind Mountains men. We have 600 men. Half of them are in chi condensation. Based on strength alone, the Kai clan is weaker." "Ha ha ha, so what if you're strong? You're just bandits." Kai shouting laughed at her. "Lei clan is but a rabble of thugs. If you take the role of clan head, we'll only be the 7 houses' laughingstock. Never will we be able to reach their level." "Who are you calling a thug? You want a piece of me?" "You say you're not, thug granny." In an instant, the Lei and Kai clans started fighting for the leader's position. Zhuofan was secretly sneering at the side. This new clan is just being established, and it was still a question if it could survive. Yet these bunch of idiots are plagued with delusions of grandeur that they could hold their own against the 7 houses. Fatty and Fong Qiubai mocked the quarreling clans with their eyes. Luo Yunchang's face burned in anger. They were fighting against each other while ignoring the Luo clan. It clearly showed that they thought little of her clan. Although they were but 4 members, they were still one of the 3 clans in the edict. But these clans didn't even ask for their opinion. Bam! With that loud slap, the 2 clans stopped and turned to see the brat Luo Yunhai hitting the table. His face was stern and his eyes were steadfast, unlike his usual childish self. Even Zhuofan quirked an eyebrow. Why all this fuss? Luo Yunhai swept the people with his eyes and spoke with resolve. In this merger of clans, the only one worthy of the leader position is none other than my Luo clan. Luo Yunhai's declaration shocked them silly. Kai shouting mocked, "What does a brat know? You're the weakest of us, nothing of worth at all. What gives you the right to lead us?" Sneering, Luo Yunhai grinned. Everyone there recognized his look, the spitting image of someone they all knew very well. This made them turn their eyes to Zhuofan. Hell, Zhuofan ruined him. Zhuofan was quite piqued by this brat. Luo clan has no men, money, or pills. It only has us 4, masters and servants. Luo Yunhai looked at them with sparkling eyes. "But our clan is the strongest because we have Steward Zhua." Luo Yunhai turned to Zhuofan with worship in his gaze. If Luo clan was to have any right to become the head, it would all be thanks to Zhuofan. His skills were obvious to anyone there. Even Veiled Dragon Pavilion was certain that if Zhuofan stayed with Luo clan, its rise was but a matter of time under the hopeful and worried gazes, especially Luo Yunhai's expectant look. Zhuofan shook his head. "This kid hardly ever shows such great expectations from me. I can't disappoint him now, can I?" Humph! Zhuofan is a mere steward. How can a person of low status like him be worthy to hold on to all our Kai clan's guards and wealth? Punk! Our clan shall be the head, don't. Kai shouting mocked, but didn't finish as Zhuofan slapped the table, revealing the alliance agreement under the puzzlement of others. Zhuofan sneered. "This is Luo clan and Veiled Dragon Pavilion's alliance contract." "What?" The fatty was so shocked his whole body trembled and was close to falling off his chair. Even the relaxed and uncaring Fong Qiubai, behind him, narrowed his eyes as he scanned the sheepskin with shock. Veiled Dragon Pavilion was one of the 7 noble houses. The only ones worthy of signing an alliance agreement with them were others from the seven houses, while the rest only had the right to sign a subsidiary agreement. But now, with a deep look, Fang Qiubai sighed as he asked Zhuo Fan, "Kid, how did you do it?" Recognized and valued as a hero, he nodded towards Fang Qiubai, then turned to the two clans and spoke in a cold tone. "Let me tell you, even if this crappy secret pearl order never existed, as long as I'm here, Luo clan will ultimately rise to the ranks of the seven houses. You're of no help to us. On the contrary, you are a burden." Zhuo Fan sneered. The two other clans lost their voices in shock with rosy cheeks. Luo Yunchang raised her chin proudly. Luo Yunhai was grinning from excitement, watching Zhuo Fan with veneration. Chapter 50 Merger. Chapter 50 Merger. Mulling over, the fatty traced his hand on the alliance agreement. He found Zhuo Fan's strength exceeding his expectations, as it was not a simple matter to gain such an alliance agreement. Even if Long Jio was in favor of him, an elder didn't hold much sway in the Veiled Dragon Pavilion fatty side. "Steward Zhuo, I am saddened by seeing you live in such a poor clan. Why don't you come help me? Just think about it." To the shock of everyone present, the third prince expressed his intention in recruiting Zhuo Fan. It amazed them that Zhuo Fan was so highly sought after that even the imperial family was willing to have him. Luo Yunchang stood up nervously, thinking Zhuo Fan would be snatched away. Zhuo Fan smiled and shook his head. "Third prince, you're overestimating me. Even in the Luo clan, am I not doing my best for the imperial family?" Fatty quirked an eyebrow and smiled. "All right, I'll leave it at that." He then turned to the rest. "It's decided. The Luo clan will be the leader of the three clans merger. Kai and Lei clans are to assist the Luo clan in fulfilling the secret pearl order." "Your Highness!" Kai shouting was disgruntled and wanted to voice his objection, but Kai Rong gripped his arm. He didn't understand the reason, but Fatty's pin-sized eyes left him shivering. From the killing intent, secret pearl order was a millennium-old secret plan, and it held great importance to the imperial family. It was understandable that they would only choose the best clan for the position of leader if the three clans were equal. The imperial family would have taken his objection into consideration, but Zhuo Fan took out the alliance agreement, making all dissent moot. It turned the Luo clan into the best choice in implementing the secret edict for the imperial family. If even with this, the other clans voiced their discontent, the imperial family would deal them with a heavy hand, just as Zhuo Fan said. The Luo clan had all the power it needed to bring the secret edict to fruition. This, in turn, made the other two clans their vassals. If they felt that being a vassal was unpleasant, the imperial family would finish them off with a mere swipe. Kai shouting, let the matter drop. Yet the discontent never left his face. He could only follow Kai Rong's actions in submitting. Fatty nodded, then turned to Lei Yuntian to see if he had objections. The old man said, "Your Highness, be at ease. I will give my all in assisting Yunhai and Yunchang. As Cloud Manor fell because of me, I will become a servant to atone for my crimes." Fatty nodded at his sincerity. "Good. Since there are no objections, the three clans shall unite." "Understood." Everyone bowed. "We shall now withdraw. Steward Zhuo stay for a while." Zhuo Fan was unclear as to the reason why, but remained nonetheless under the departing and curious gazes of the rest. The Fatty let out a breath, then rushed to Zhuo Fan and dragged him to an empty place in the garden. "Third prince." Zhuo Fan frowned. Fatty waved. "Just follow my lead." Fatty then pointed two fingers at the sky as he shouted, "I, Tianyu Empire's third prince, Yuan Song, vow to heaven to become sworn brother with Luo clan steward, Zhuo Fan, to share life and death together and never betray him. Your turn." Fatty watched Zhuo Fan impatiently. Zhuo Fan was confused, but becoming sworn brothers with third prince had to be a good thing, so he went along. "I, Luo clan steward, Zhuo Fan, vow to heaven to become sworn brother with Tianyu Empire's third prince, Yuan Kong. If he doesn't betray me, I won't either." Fatty muttered when he heard the last part. "Brother, you sure are meticulous." "Fatty, it's not that I don't trust you, but the pugilistic world is too vicious." Zhuo Fan shrugged, not having any restraint in calling him Fatty. Since no one was here, the fatty himself wouldn't blow a gasket over this. Plus, this kid needs me to complete the secret edict. Zhuo Fan was perfectly clear when to be fierce and when to be scared, just as he foresaw. The fatty nodded instead of getting angry. Call me how you like it. I feel much better since we are sworn brothers now. Zhuo Fan looked at him in puzzlement. Fatty sighed. Do you remember our bet from yesterday? The winner gets to have Sister Koei. I lost the bet, but I still can't let it go. So I decided to become sworn brothers with you. This way I won't go after my brother's wife, and it would help me forget about Sister Koei too. Zhuo Fan rose an eyebrow, incredulous that the fatty wanted to become sworn brothers over this. Fatty, there's nothing between me and that girl. She was just making excuses. What, is that true? Fatty even jumped 10 meters in joy. Then can I still chase her? Nodding, Zhuo Fan showed a vague smile. Go, annoy the little lass to death. Awesome, brother. You are indeed my sworn brother. Ha! Fatty was skipping and whooping in joy. Now that the bet was off, he could chase Long Koei to his heart's content. Zhuo Fan smiled. Fatty, what does the secret pearl order truly say? The fatty dropped his smile, watching Zhuo Fan with embarrassment. Brother, didn't I say it already? This plan is very delicate, and even the goal is fair, but Zhuo Fan squinted. It lacks ambition. So much so that an emperor of a founding empire would never come up with it. The great ancestor showed great ambition when he established the empire. Zhuo Fan wasn't gullible enough to believe the secret Millennium Order was limited to restricting the 7 houses and maintaining a balance of power. Fatty shook his head. I do not know either. This was what I've been told. Zhuo Fan stared him down, but discovered nothing else. Maybe he knew nothing, or maybe his acting was top-notch. Then how did Hell Valley catch wind of this 1,000-year-old secret edict? Zhuo Fan smiled. All of Hell Valley's actions were against the secret edict while looking innocent doing it. They were afraid of the imperial family's investigation. Fatty frowned. Reason points to the contrary, but there are many spies in the imperial capital. The information about secret edict might have leaked. It remained hidden for 1,000 years, and only now it gets leaked? Zhuo Fan frowned. Maybe leaking it is part of the secret edict's contents. The fatty shivered and went wide-eyed. Zhuo Fan smirked. It's clear now. Never mind. It works in Luo clan's benefit anyway. So there's no need to poke my nose in it. There's no need to worry over nothing. Ha ha ha. Zhuo Fan waved as he left. Fatty, I'll be going. We'll meet again if we get the chance. A voice rang in Fatty's ear as Zhuo Fan's figure distanced. This kid is perhaps too sharp, scary even. Whoosh. It was Fong Qiubai in his blue robe. Fong, Qiubai muttered. The more I watch him, the more he resembles someone. Who? Fatty asked. Fong Qiubai's eyes flashed. Zhuge Changfeng, the leader of 4 pillars, Prime Minister Zhuge Changfeng. Fatty was in shock. Are you saying Zhuo Fan? Nodding, Fong Qiubai smiled. Tsonger, becoming sworn brothers with him was the best decision you made in your life. One day, he will become one of your 4 pillars, helping you rule. The fatty was stunned, watching Zhuo Fan getting further away as ambition flickered in his eyes. Zhuo Fan returned to the small courtyard and saw the others waiting outside. What's wrong? Did Third Prince say something? Luo Yinchang was worried. He refused Veiled Dragon Pavilion's invitation, but this was the imperial family. With just a nod, he could become an official with the support of the imperial family, secretly smiling. Zhuo Fan said, Fatty told me to do my best in fulfilling the secret edict. Luo Yinchang covered Zhuo Fan's mouth, then looked around before saying, How can you call Third Prince like that? Be careful, or he might take your life. He won't. He still needs me. Zhuo Fan dismissed her worry and even gave a thumbs up to Luo Yinhai. Your performance was perfect, worthy of a clan head. You made me proud. Please, didn't I learn it all from bro? Luo Yinhai stuck up his chin. It was clear the bro he referred to was Zhuo Fan. Everyone laughed, and Luo Yinchang showed a relieved smile. Dad, can you see? Yinhai has grown up. He can shoulder the honor and glory of the Luo clan. Luo Yinchang looked at the sky with sparkling eyes on the second day after the meeting. The new clan was established with Luo clan at the helm. The name was, of course, Luo clan. Zhou Fan, with the imperial family support, had no trouble becoming the head steward of the clan. Handling all affairs, he appointed Lei Yuntian as Luo clan's grand elder and Kai Rong as the second elder, while keeping Old Pang as the captain of the guards, leading the Kai clan's guards. Lei Yuding was made the leader of the Shadow Corps, taking Blackwind Mountain's bandits under her, and in charge of intelligence gathering and training assassins. Because of the imperial family's decree, the Veiled Dragon Pavilion and Hell Valley were banned from entering the Wingate city. The rest of the 7 houses remained within their borders, thus making this city belong to the Luo clan alone. As for the Luo clan's estate, Kai clan suggested for it to be the former Kai Manor, but Zhou Fan had other plans. Blackwind Mountain, the place where a natural array took form. And so, another Devil Mountain was established, and Zhou Fan's plans advanced one step at a time. Chapter 51, 4 Pillars Leader. Chapter 51, 4 Pillars Leader. The slums in the imperial capital were the darkest corners of the empire. Seedy, good, devious, and all other kinds of people mixed in here, along with the down shacks, painted a perfectly wretched image. Any self-respecting man who had some money on the side would never choose to live here. Only those living from one day to the next, and the truly poor stayed here, waiting for the day that would rob them of their lives. Yet in the worst corner of the slums was a courtyard the people feared to the point of being afraid to step through its doors. Even if the vilest and most sinister man was to wander by happenstance here, he would be warned to leave this house. This courtyard was unoccupied, but at night there were eerie whispers coming from it. Some braved to investigate, but it was as if their traces in this world vanished the moment they stepped foot inside. Recently, some bone tempering and even a profound heaven expert charged in, fearing no evil afterwards. Well, there was no news. They were gone all the same. From that moment, the courtyard became a taboo, avoided by the strong and weak alike on a full moon night, when the slums had turned unusually quiet. The people had gone home earlier and as far away from the demonic courtyard as possible, but it was then that a faint lantern lit up in the courtyard. It was akin to ghost fire, flickering on and off in a ruined room of the courtyard. An elderly with white temples sat in a pleased manner on a tutor's chair, waving a goose-feathered fan. His half-lidded eyes flashed here and there, and his mouth was twisted at the corners. It was as if the world's suffering and happiness were beneath him. 2 old men stood behind, one with black hair and the other with white hair. Their eyes were closed, but their powerful auras identified them as experts, preventing any living creature from approaching 100 meters around them. Even a harmless beetle would find its tiny heart reeked with fear. Whoosh. A sound broke the silence, and a black-clothed man suddenly appeared outside the room. He had a bamboo hat that hid his features. The sitting old man stopped fanning and smiled. "Valley Lord, how is it progressing?" The bamboo-wearing man was Hell Valley's Valley Lord, Yuan Shan. Sighing, Yuan Shan shook his head. A dozen years of painstaking effort was ruined. The Emperor ordered for Hell Valley to stay away from Wingate City. The same goes for the other houses. He must have sensed something. Oh, the old man raised an eyebrow with a smile. The Emperor is planning on enacting the secret Pearl Order. My guess is yes. Yuan Shan's face grew angry. They got luck on their side last time, but next time it won't be so simple. Emperor wants to raise the 8th house, but we shall see if the clan can live to see that day. Ha ha ha. Valley Lord, ease your anger. A loss is a loss. Why make excuses? The old man was still calm, yet his words were sharp and filled with disdain. Hell Valley is one of the 7 noble houses, yet it can't even deal with 3 common clans. The time of its fall must be close at hand. Yuan Shan snapped, his power exploding. Peak profound heaven cultivation smashed the windows to splinters. He unleashed all of it to pressure the old man. Zhuge Changfeng, you were the one who told me of the contents of the secret Pearl Order. It was also you who said the Emperor wants to help in the rise of the 8th house. The dozen years plan also came from you. So how can you speak like this? Yuan Shan bellowed, "Go to hell." The smile never left the old man's face, still sitting calmly and fanning slowly. Boom. Just when the pressure was drawing near Zhuge Changfeng, the black and white elders behind him opened their eyes at that moment. One's eyes flashed black while the other's flashed white. A ripple echoed outwards and clashed with Yu Wanshan's display of power, creating a jarring sound. The entire slums shook. Yu Wanshan felt a sweetness in his throat and spat blood as his face paled. The two elders closed their eyes again, while Zhuge Changfeng swayed the fan like nothing had happened. Still sporting that ever-present smile, Yu Wanshan watched the black and white elders incredulously. "Yinyang elders?" Zhuge Changfeng nodded. "Valley Lord Yu sure is knowledgeable. These seniors haven't shown up over the past century. I find it amazing that you still recognize them." Grinding his teeth in anger, Yu Wanshan panted while also spitting blood now and then, but the look he had when he turned to the elders was now one of fear. "You are worthy of being Tianyu's #1 sage. For pillars as leader, Prime Minister Zhuge. To be able to make these monsters leave their mountain. Not even that Feng Qiubai from the Divine Dragons can compare to you." "Ha ha ha. Valley Lord Yu is exaggerating. I am not worthy of such a title. I do not dare face the imperial family in the open just yet." Zhuge Changfeng let out a short laugh, but the confidence he exuded was unshakable. Yu Wanshan snorted and muttered, "Prime Minister Zhuge is as modest as he is arrogant. Who in the Tianyu Empire can match your power? Not even the imperial family can. Sigh, I can see why you failed in Wingate City. In this world, strength and weakness aren't obvious at a glance." Zhuge Changfeng sighed as he looked at the sky. "Furthermore, I am not the #1 sage in Tianyu. If not you, then who? That person above me." Zhuge Changfeng pointed upward with a grave expression. Yu Wanshan disdained. "You're talking about that senile emperor?" "Senile?" Zhuge Changfeng chuckled. "I've been a prime minister in the imperial court for 40 years now, and I still can't read him. Valley Lord Yu, go back. Make sure to not cause any further trouble." Zhuge Changfeng swayed his fan as his countenance went back to normal. "Be careful to not give that old man the perfect chance to remove you for good." "Humph! The imperial family's power is hardly enough to deal with my Hell Valley." Yu Wanshan grinned, but when he saw the cold look in Zhuge Changfeng's eye, he didn't continue. He just cupped his hands and vanished in the night after Yu Wanshan left. Zhuge Changfeng took a deep breath and looked to the heavens. "Your Majesty, what is your plan? What is the secret pearl order?" 3 months later, in a misty forest at the foot of Blackwind Mountain, Zhuge Fan stood near a frigid blood pool, holding a gourd. His hands performed signs and red dots flew from the pool into the gourd. A smile tugged at Zhuge Fan's face as he watched the wiggling red dots. This blood pond was something Zhuge Fan made to raise the frigid pool snowworm. Though its name should more aptly be frigid pool bloodworm, Zhuge Fan used a secret art from the 9 Serenity's secret records to train this particular demonic creature. So it not only retained the parasitic ability of the frigid pool snowworm, but it also connected to Zhuge Fan through telepathy. It could now work in tandem with him in performing a secret and evil magic art from the 9 Serenity's secret records. The blood curse was a demonic cultivator's way of controlling his men. Once he put the blood curse on someone, they had to obey him for life. If not, the blood curse would flare up and the victim would die of blood explosion. A cruel and savage ending, but the blood curse had a fatal flaw. If the target was stronger than the caster, the later would be devoured. This wasn't anything good for Zhuge Fan, but now that Zhuge Fan had the bloodworm, this flaw could be eliminated. Since the bloodworm lived in the target's body, they would never be able to remove the blood curse with this special demonic creature. Zhuge Fan would be in control of a large group of experts to assist him. If anyone heard of this, they'd come to kill Zhuge Fan themselves, even Radiant Stage experts. This demonic creature was an abomination, an affront to heaven. Any listener would shiver hearing one could make any expert into a slave. With a maniac grin on his face, Zhuge Fan took the gourd filled with bloodworms and left Misty Forest. He performed a hand sign, and the forest fog turned bloody. Barring any entry, this was his rearing grounds. Why would he ever let another find it? Stashing the gourd in his ring, Zhuge Fan returned to Blackwind Mountain. On his way, he paid attention to every grass, every tree to make sure all was in order over the past 3 months. Besides the imperial family sending thousands of spirit stones and hundreds of pills, the Veiled Dragon Pavilion also sent 2,000 spirit stones. He had enough spirit stones on hand that he could flaunt his array grandmaster skills. Plus, with the natural array here, he could still set up some decent defensive array even without such an amount of spirit stones. To the east of Blackwind Mountain was the Azure Dragon position under the wood attribute. It was a place filled with vitality. As such, Zhuofan set up a 5th great array, Poison Dragon Array. Poisonous thickets grew inside the array, and the miasma above them would never scatter. Even a profound heaven expert would find it hard to escape with his life. To the west was the White Tiger position under the metal attribute. It was a place filled with sharp and overgrown plants. Zhuofan set up a 5th great array, Dazzling Gold Array. 9 suns shined brightly within the array in every direction that no one could walk with their eyes open. Each ray of golden light was like a sharp sword, capable of robbing people of their lives. Yet incorporeal to the south was the vermilion bird position of the fire attribute, filled with burning chi. Zhuofan set the 5th great array, Black Flame Array. The fires within it were demonic flames that corroded bones. When it entered one's body, it would be hard to remove, and it wouldn't stop gnawing until the target was burned to ashes. To the north was the Black Tortoise position of the water attribute, a place filled with piercing chills. Zhuofan set up the 5th great array, Ice Shadows Array. Howling winds blew within the array's territory, forming endless illusions. Anyone who entered would lose their way easily and freeze to death under the bone-piercing coldness that seeped into the victim's body. Zhuofan didn't tell anyone about the 4 new arrays. But since today was the day of his departure, he had to give the array's method of control to those he trusted. Chapter 52, Departure. Chapter 52, Departure. Young miss, come with me. Zhuofan beckoned Luo Yunchang. She was unclear as to the reason, but she followed nonetheless. She was filled with glee as she saw so many things brought from the imperial family over the past few days, especially with 2 elders standing watch. Luo clan was becoming stronger day by day. She was so moved that she was lost for words. It got so far that she even let Zhuofan's disappearance for these past 3 months slide. Steward Zhuo, is there something? Luo Yunchang smiled as they entered a small room. Zhuofan closed the windows and doors without replying. Her thoughts started going in a particular direction, and her face flushed. Zhuofan, what are you trying to do? Luo Yunchang was bashful, taking a deep breath. Zhuofan began, I'm leaving. What? Luo Yunchang stood there in shock. She had a face of complete disbelief, wondering if she had heard him wrongly. Only when Zhuofan repeated, was she certain? Why, Luo clan is growing and is already the #1 clan in Wingate City. Why do you want to leave? For Luo clan's safety. Zhuofan's tone was grave. Luo clan is safe, for now, and there's no other clan around to mess with it. But remember what we had to do in exchange for all this. We accepted the imperial family's vague secret pearl order and offended the 7 noble houses Hell Valley. As for Veiled Dragon Pavilion, if we do not rise to the level of the 7 houses, they will change their stance with us. Then we need you even more. What will we do without you? Luo Yunchang teared up. Her heart was unwilling to let him go. In a blink, a glittering tear fell, wiping her tears away with a gentle touch. Zhuofan said, Fatty was right about one thing. A clan's foundation is strength. I am leaving now to bring back experts for the Luo clan, to protect our future. This is the control method of the 4 arrays around Blackwind Mountain. Only you must use it. If I'm not back in time, you can activate the arrays to deal with any trouble that arises. These are 4 5th grade arrays, plus the Wraith Array in the Misty Forest. It should defend you for a good while. Zhuofan gave a jade slip to Luo Yunchang, who accepted it in tears. She asked softly, How long will you be gone? Sighing, Zhuofan shook his head, I don't know, but I'll be back as soon as I can. He wasn't leaving just to recruit experts, but also to search for the Heavenly Emperor's remnant Long Jiu talked about, Lightning Canyon. At any given time, raising one's power was the most basic way to guarantee one's safety. All right, go now. Send Captain Pang and Yinhai in. Nodding, Luo Yinchang left but stopped to kiss Shuofan. He froze for a moment and watched her leave with a deep look. Luo Yinchang blushed, but didn't turn around as she mumbled, "Come back soon." When the words came, she was already gone. Not a moment later, Captain Pang brought Luo Yinhai over. Even they were shocked that Shuofan was leaving. "Silly kid, you're the only man of the Luo clan. Your sister will have to rely on you in the future. You must act like a true clan head who bears the Luo clan's responsibilities." Shuofan patted Yunhai's shoulder. Luo Yinhai nodded, while sobbing. Turning to Captain Pang, Shuofan's hand flashed and revealed a jade slip. But when Captain Pang was about to take it, Shuofan clenched his fist. Captain Pang looked at him in doubt. Shuofan stared hard at him. "Pang you, do you remember what Long Kuei said? She is right. With your talent, you'll only be a chi condensation cultivator at best." Captain Pang's face darkened. His hand shivered and withdrew a bit, but Shuofan's tone turned grave. "Nothing is set in stone. I have on me a way to change your body anew, to gain incredible power. But the terror you will experience would be worse than death, and the pain unimaginable. Are you willing?" Captain Pang was stunned. Then he was overjoyed, truly. Nodding, Shuofan raised the jade slip. "This is a mid-profound ranked demonic method. Wraith art. It is unlike other cultivation methods. It is a cultivation method for the body, ignoring one's talent for cultivation or his constitution. Just that cultivating will make your life a living hell. It's no different from being boiled alive. And once you start, you can never stop or your soul will perish." Captain Pang licked his dry lips, yet he wasn't afraid. His eyes only held excitement. "No worries. As long as I can become strong, no torment shall best old Pang." Captain Pang snatched the jade slip as he shouted. Shuofan reminded him, "The horrors you will experience from cultivating it aren't something you can fathom. Maybe you will be under such a pain that your mind will collapse and die in the end. This is a mid-profound ranked cultivation method, matching a high-profound ranked cultivation method. But with the process being so excruciating, many great demonic cultivators never dared to touch it. Choose wisely." Waving his hand, Captain Pang's eyes flickered. "Brother Shua, old Pang's only torment in this life was to see clan head die before me and unable to stop it. Now, my greatest wish is to protect young Miss and young Master." Captain Pang looked gratefully. "Brother Shua, thank you for giving me this chance to have no more regrets." Shuofan's heart shivered as he nodded. His eyes held respect. "The next time we see each other, I hope to see a powerful old Pang and not a corpse." "Aha, no worries. I am stubborn, not one to die from just this." Captain Pang laughed and squeezed Shuofan in a bear hug with moist eyes. "Brother, come back soon. Luo clan won't be the same without you." Patting Shuofan's shoulder, Captain Pang left with Luo Yinhai. Per Shuofan's instructions, Lei Yuding came soon after. "Miss Lei, how is the task I gave you?" Shuofan smiled. Lei Yuding blushed with a nod. "Brother Shua, the 610-year-old children you asked me to gather are almost here. They all are high talents and await your teachings." Shuofan eyed her, then nodded. "How did you know that I wanted to teach them?" Lei Yuding spoke with confidence. "I know you too well to believe that you helped those orphans out of the goodness of your heart. So I guess you wanted to train them as Luo clan's guards and make me their leader." At her words, Shuofan recalled something and sighed. "Goodness? I once raised an orphan out of kindness, and look where it got me. Didn't he betray me in the end?" Shuofan's eyes flashed coldly at that point, scaring Lei Yuding. "Miss Lei." Shuofan held a jade slip. "This is a mid-spirit ranked cultivation method, elusive shadow art. Cultivate it, and then give it to those you trust to form the shadow core, protecting the clan in the dark. Begin with the 600 children the same way I taught you. Use the worst of them as guards, the average for the shadow core, and hand the best among them over to Captain Pang to train them in secret. Pass him my word, he'll understand." Lei Yuding took the jade slip with a blank look, then stared at Shuofan, her heart uneasy. "Why not do it yourself?" "I'm leaving." "What?" Lei Yuding asked. "Why?" Shuofan was forced to retell his reasons. Lei Yuding nodded. but before she went out the door, she pecked Zhuo Fan's cheek. He was floored, watching her dash away in a blink. What is going on? Do all women like to peck? Next was Lei Yunqian's turn. Zhuo Fan explained to him his affairs, and Lei Yuntian took his instructions to heart in an honest manner. Although he was the Grand Elder, he was clear Zhuo Fan controlled everything. Elder Lei. Zhuo Fan took out another jade slip. This is the profound ranked martial art I recorded after merging the 3 clans' martial arts. Thunderwind Sweeping Dragon Art. Since this is part of the Imperial family's Secret Pearls Order, this will be the Luo clan's best martial art on the surface. As a Grand Elder, you need to be diligent in practicing it. Lei Yuntian raised an eyebrow, but nodded. Zhuo Fan put an emphasis on the words on the surface, making it clear he had other high-ranked martial arts that the Imperial family was unaware of. His secret weapons a day may come when the Imperial family might discover that the 8th house they raised was out of their control. But at that time, it would already be too late. Zhuo Fan was young, but his wisdom and shrewdness drew the old man's admiration. Rest assured, Steward Zhuo, I will be the best Grand Elder there is. Lei Yuntian laughed, reaching an understanding with Zhuo Fan. Even without Zhuo Fan's reminder, he was clear what it meant to stand close to a ruler, and that the Imperial family wasn't to be trusted. But Zhuo Fan gave this old man the nerve to tangle with this behemoth. Right, Steward Zhuo. What a Kai clan's father and son. Lei Yuntian frowned. It's already been 3 months since the merger of the 3 clans, but I still feel that the Kai clan is of a different thought, always acting suspiciously. The Blackwind Mountains guards have people from the Kai Manor. I fear. Let them. Zhuo Fan waved with a smile. The Kai clan is part of the Secret Pearl Order. If we deal with them, we'll earn the Imperial family's ire. But if they betray us first, Lei Yuntian's eyes flashed with a nod. You're amazing, Steward Zhuo, to plan so far ahead. Zhuo Fan squinted as killing intent filled his eyes. On the morning of the 2nd day, Zhuo Fan left Blackwind Mountain all by himself. On the mountain peak, Luo Yunchong, Lei Yuding, and Lei Yuntian, along with other Luo clan members, watched him leave. All except Kai clan's duo, but in the forest halfway up the mountain, Kai Rong and his son watched Zhuo Fan's retreating figure with cold eyes. Humph, without this wretched punk, Luo clan will fall from grace. Kai shouting snorted. That stinky girl, Luo Yunchong, made eyes with Zhuo Fan every single day, not sparing me even a glance. With Zhuo Fan gone, Blackwind Mountain is ours. Let's see her act haughty now. One must give credit to Zhuo Fan for his rare talent. He has Veiled Dragon Pavilion on his left and Third Prince on his right, while he himself has the power to shake the 3 clans. All of Blackwind Mountain knows the true clan head of this merged clan is him. Kai Rong shook his head. The most unfortunate thing is that he chose to be against us. Since he is leaving, we might as well take everything back. Dad, what do we do? Kai shouting asked, shaking his head. Kai Rong said, don't be hasty. With Zhuo Fan gone, the Luo clan is nothing. The Lei clan is our true enemy. We need to ally ourselves and become stronger than the Lei clan. Chapter 53, All Beast Mountain Range. Chapter 53, All Beast Mountain Range. In the shadow of a large forest, a black-robed figure stood on the precipice of a mountain. His eyes took in the view of a large city gate with 3 golden words inscribed on it. Blue Expanse City, raising the corner of his mouth. The black-robed man left as the wind scattered 2 piles of black dust. 15 minutes later, the man arrived before the city gate's hold. Where's your pass? With a clank, 2 city guards crossed their spears before the man as they released their 6th layer Qi condensation cultivation, taking out a metal tablet with the serene character inscribed on it. The black-robed man let them see it. The guards nodded and let him pass. Enter. The black-robed man quickened his pace, but after 100 meters, he turned his head at the guards, eyeing them with disdain. Utterly useless. The man raised his head and exposed his face. It was Zhuo Fan. It had been a month since he left Luo clan, and this city was his first destination, Blue Expanse City. This place was Hell Valley's domain. Just how Veiled Dragon Pavilion placed its guards in the Wind Gaze City, so did Hell Valley in this city to avoid anyone recognizing him. Fan put on a black robe. He braved through this deadly danger because he was left with no other choice. Who told the spiritual beasts to gather on the All-Beast mountain range near the Blue Expanse city? This was also why the security was so tight in this city, be it righteous or demonic cultivators. There were other external means to increase one's power besides the hard and arduous method of cultivation. Spiritual weapons, demonic treasures, spirit animals, demonic creatures. These were all external means, but of significant importance. At the time of peril, it could save one's life. The late Elder of Hell Valley was a good example. Condor Jianfan's soul-devouring crow had the purple lightning gold eye and could push back Veiled Dragon Pavilion's 3 elders' joint attack. Long Jio's third-grade spiritual weapon was another, helping him push back 2 Hell Valley's elders with just a sword. It was obvious how important these external means were to cultivators. Spiritual beasts could be turned into demonic creatures or spirit animals. Righteous cultivators tamed them into spirit animals, while demonic cultivators tamed them into demonic creatures. Fan's blood infant, which was born naturally, was an exception. The Blue Expanse city was taken by Hell Valley during the founding of the Tianyu Empire. As such, any cultivator wanting to get his spirit animal or demonic creature would have to obtain Hell Valley's approval, and Hell Valley used this as a pretext to set up a checkpoint half a mile around it to confirm everyone's identities, allowing entry to only those with a pass. But how could Fan expose himself and offer himself up on a chopping block? So he killed 2 righteous cultivators outside, stole their pass, and waltzed right in. Humph! Hell Valley can only intimidate some shy disciples with this. You think this is enough to deal with a bold cultivator or a profound heaven expert? Fan's mouth let out snide remarks as he walked on. He came all this way to All-Beast mountain range looking for a rare 6th-level spiritual beast, Thunder Skylark. Entering Lightning Canyon could only be done through the purple lightning. Fan was certain Long Jio's 3rd heaven purple lightning wasn't the same as the lightning from that place, or it would have reached the 6th heaven. That kind of power was a deterrence even for a Radiant Stage expert. So before he cleared Lightning Canyon's restrictions, he had to first find a way to guarantee his life in that place. And the Thunder Skylark, a creature that lived by swallowing lightning, was a perfect choice when he'd made it his demonic creature that matched the demon transformation art. He'd have no trouble getting in. Fan hoped Lightning Canyon's purple lightning wasn't higher than 6th heaven, or not even the Thunder Skylark would survive repeated blows to its body and turn to ash. If that happens, then he'd only be waiting for his death. Fan took a deep breath and picked up the pace. If not for Heavenly Emperor's remnant, he'd never dare go through such danger. Bam! As he walked, a black figure knocked into his chest. Fan looked down to find a little beggar in shabby clothes. Fan was enraged, but before he could curse, here came the little beggar's pleading voice. "Please, don't shout." Fan frowned. Then, from his back, a group of 30 chi condensation cultivators appeared because the beggar hid in front of Fan. His black cloak was wide enough to hide the beggar. Any sign of him? None. What are you standing around for? Find him. If we don't find him, Master will have our heads. A steward cursed. The others only nodded as they scattered once they were gone. The beggar looked up with a relieved breath and patted his chest. "Scared me to death. I didn't think I'd make it." Fan ignored him and walked away. Brother." The beggar was stunned for a second, then swooped in to block Fan's path. He had a dark and dirty face, but sported an extra big smile as he said, "Thank you for earlier. If it weren't for you." But Fan kept walking. The beggar stood there blinking, then hurriedly caught up with Fan. "Brother, did you come from outside the city? Can you take me outside, please? If you want to leave, do it alone. You don't need a pass to go out." Fan dodged him. The little beggar's face was bitter as he bit his lip and sniffed twice as tears rolled down his cheeks. "Brother, to be honest, I stole from them. If they catch me, I'm a goner. Please, take me outside." Smiling, Fan eyed him, around 15-16 years old and a 4th-layer chi condensation cultivator. "You're not weak for your age. There's no way a commoner can have such cultivation. Are you truly a beggar?" The beggar stopped crying and his eyes darted everywhere as if looking for an excuse. Fan continued with a smile. And even if you're sincere, why should I help you and offend a powerful clan? I see no reason why I need to help you. Zhou Fan then shook his head and walked past him. The beggar stood frozen in his spot, not knowing what to do. He didn't think Zhou Fan was pragmatic from the start. The beggar thought Zhou Fan to be a kind youth since he helped him once. Don't you want to go to the All-Beast mountain range? The beggar shouted. Zhou Fan halted his steps. All who come here are looking to go to the All-Beast mountain range. What else is here? Visiting Hell Valley Cemetery. The beggar was stunned by his words. This kid sure has an attitude. Isn't he afraid of being killed for cursing Hell Valley? But the more Zhou Fan acted as such, the weirder the beggar's eyes turned. You'll have to wait for 3 months before going to All-Beast mountain range. Zhou Fan stopped with a frown. Why? The beggar skipped to him with a smile. Let me tell you, the diamond sand is about to come out on All-Beast mountain range. These past months, Hell Valley sealed the whole mountain range for this precise reason. Diamond sand. Zhou Fan was secretly overjoyed. The diamond sand was known as the blood of the earth, rare and difficult to obtain. It was used for refining 5th-grade spiritual weapons. But what made it even more valuable was that it was a flowing spirit metal, a perfect match for his blood infant. His blood infant was close to breaking through to bone-tempering stage, and he needed to refine its body. At that time, blood infant could switch between being corporeal and elusive, killing people without leaving tracks. Refining it with 100 spirit metals would turn it as hard as a demonic treasure, and it would become difficult to cause any harm to it. He could also achieve a similar result by refining blood infant with diamond sand. If he was able to do it, then he wouldn't have to worry about obtaining 100 spirit metals. And with a body refined from diamond sand, facing a profound heaven expert would be a cinch. Thinking of this, Zhou Fan's eyes flashed with excitement. The beggar saw through Zhou Fan and coughed as he raised his head with pride. Let's make a deal. If you take me outside the city, I will take you to All-Beast mountain range. And when the diamond sand erupts, we can take advantage of their carelessness and steal a bit. Zhou Fan secretly snickered. There was no way Hell Valley didn't prepare for this. But the fact that he had a guide to enter All-Beast mountain range without them knowing was a nice bonus deal. The beggar raised his hand and winked. Zhou Fan shook his head and slapped the beggar's hand. Ha ha ha, awesome. I finally found someone to take me out of this damnable place. The beggar laughed while jumping around. Brother, what's your name? Zhou Fan. Zhou Fan was blunt, because he knew even though Hell Valley was aware of the Luo clan, his title as a steward wasn't well known. And the only one who knows that he killed 2 of their elders was Yang Ming. But would anyone believe him even if he said it? Zhou Fan was confident that Yang Ming would let this matter fester inside him. If anyone knew that Elder Jian died at the hands of a chi condensation punk, yet he survived, his future would be bleak, if not cut short. Moreover, even if he did speak up, Hell Valley would never announce it. Could they afford to lose any more reputation? The beggar laughed. Brother Zhou, call me Xiao Ning. Fine. Zhou Fan nodded, not caring much because he knew it was fake. The beggar pouted, looking at him with a deep look full of curiosity. Zhou Fan gave him a different impression from all those he had seen before, simply mysterious. Chapter 54. He's with me. Chapter 54. He's with me. Ninger. Just when the little beggar was about to take Zhou Fan to All-Beast mountain range, a yell echoed in their ears. Little beggar shivered, turning his head shyly with slow footsteps. What appeared before the two was an elegant young master in white with tied hair. He was in front of 20 chi condensation experts, donning the same clothes as the ones from the previous group. The young master ignored Zhou Fan and glared at the beggar with rage. You've caused enough trouble. It's time you return. Biting his lip, the beggar's eyes looked uncertain, but soon he came to a decision and stared back with a firm gaze. He dodged behind Zhou Fan with a yell. Brother Zhou, save me. The young master finally picked up on Zhou Fan's presence, merely glancing his phoenix eyes his way. This concerns our Shui clan. If sir does not want any trouble, I suggest you leave. Shui clan. Zhou Fan quirked an eyebrow and stared long at the beggar. I didn't think this buddy had offended the Shui clan. Shui clan was the #1 common clan in Blue Expanse City. It had a profound heaven expert as overseer and could be considered a second-rate clan on the continent. But as Blue Expanse City was under Hell Valley's control, Shui clan was nothing more than its vassal. Zhuo Fan saw the beggar pleading with his eyes and smiled as he drew the beggar closer. The young master squinted and paled. The beggar was also surprised, and a faint red tint made itself notice on his dirty cheeks. "Kid, what do you think you're doing?" The young master bellowed. Zhuo Fan snickered. "From now on, he's under me. If you want him, you'll have to pass through me first." "Absurd. Did you come to Blue Expanse City without even knowing of our Shui clan? Is our clan someone you can offend?" "Ha ha ha." Zhuo Fan laughed and shook his head. "Of course I know. Shui clan is Hell Valley's #1 dog in Blue Expanse City. You're telling me to ignore all those rare and amazing spiritual beasts on All Beast Mountain Range for a lame dog?" The young master was about to explode from anger. The beggar was also angry and pushed Zhuo Fan. "Don't talk of Shui clan like that." Zhuo Fan was stunned. "I'm venting your anger, yet you still blame me?" "Men, seize them." As Zhuo Fan was lost for words, the young master bellowed. Orders the men behind him swarmed the two. The beggar woke up to who the enemy was and hid behind Zhuo Fan, sneering. Zhuo Fan picked up on the fact that these guards were mostly 5th layer Qi condensation cultivators, with only 2 in the 6th layer, a bunch of fishes looking for death. Zhuo Fan attacked with disdain. His hand flashed red and struck with blood palm. It hit a guard's chest, and the victim felt all his blood vessels burst and his organs expand to the point of bursting. He spat blood before collapsing. Another palm flew, and the next guard fell. This pattern went on and on. The group of 20 guards fell one by one under Zhuo Fan's onslaught. The young master had long been standing there in shock. Even with his 8th layer Qi condensation cultivation, he would be unable to deal with 20 men like Zhuo Fan. It was clear that Zhuo Fan was only in the 5th layer. Yet his simple palm dealt each guard a serious wound. What escaped his eyes, though, was that Zhuo Fan's blood palm bypassed a person's flesh and struck at the blood vessels. It was the same as ignoring the body's defense and attacking the vulnerable organs within. So, of course, it was far deadlier than it looked in, but a few breaths, all guards were on the ground. Knocked out, the young master witnessed it all with a solemn expression. The beggar's eyes also bulged in wonder. "So you do know a thing or two, kid. No wonder you're so smug." The young master gnashed his teeth and jumped, shattering the stones beneath his feet. "Then let me, Shui Gang, coerce her with my high martial arts." "Shui Gang." Zhuo Fan frowned. "Are you Shui clan's young master? I heard your dad pampers you, and you are to be the clan's successor. So, are you afraid perchance?" Shui Gang shouted. Zhuo Fan shook his head. "No, I just don't like annoyances. If I offend you here, my days in Blue Expanse City will be harder. It's best to shut all these people up for good and bring peace to my ears." Zhuo Fan's eyes flashed with killing intent and shot forward. Such pressure from him squeezed at Shui Gang's heart. He never dreamed Zhuo Fan would dare to kill him. The naked killing intent made his Yuan Qi slow down. Even if he was 3 layers higher than Zhuo Fan, he, who was praised to high heaven for his talent and cultivation, couldn't foresee the world housing such a ruthless youth. A mere 5th layer Qi condensation cultivator was able to overwhelm an expert 3 layers higher. He watched in abject fear as the palm neared his chest and was moments away from rupturing his heart. But in this moment of impending crisis, he bit his tongue to wake up. The pain freed him from the killing, intense, horrifying grip. With no time to lose, he punched. Blue lights shot like a tornado at Zhuo Fan. High mortal ranked martial art. Howling fist. Zhuo Fan snorted in disdain and made a hand sign so that a red light flew right into Shui Gang's body before the howling fist even touched Zhuo Fan. It broke apart, and Shui Gang's body froze on the spot in panic. At this moment, Zhuo Fan towered over him. Seeing Zhuo Fan's devious grin, Shui Gang felt like he was looking at a demon, and his heart seized up for a few seconds. Bam! Zhuo Fan's palm landed on his chest, and Shui Gang spat blood as he flew into the air. His organs felt like they were burning, and his blood vessels began to rupture, but the pain had yet to register when the demon approached. Shui Gang was so scared he was having a mental breakdown. This was Zhuo Fan. He didn't strike with another palm, and instead Zhou Fan grabbed Shui Gang's neck with a sneer. Young Master Shui, worry not. After you die, your servants will follow in your footsteps down to the last one. This should keep the Shui clan from chasing me all over for at least 3 months. Let's make this case cold. Zhou Fan tightened the chokehold, and Shui Gang felt his throat almost breaking. He could even hear his bones creak. He was on the brink of death. Besides agony, nothing else was felt. Not for the life of him could he understand what he did wrong. Wasn't he only going to bring Ninger back? Why did he meet a Reaper instead? A ruthless killer. I forgot to read my future before heading out. If his neck wasn't being crushed by Zhou Fan, he'd be wailing and bawling. Damn it, what rotten luck. Stop. Just when Zhou Fan wanted to apply the last bit of force and send the young master to paradise, the beggar yelled. Zhou Fan eyed him suspiciously. What are you doing? Aren't they your enemies? The beggar was filled with worry for Shui Gang's life that even tears formed in his eyes. In fact, he wanted to stop Zhou Fan long ago, but Zhou Fan was just too fast. He dealt with the guards in one moment, and in the next, he was at Shui Gang's throat. Even if they are, I don't want to kill them. The beggar cried. Zhou Fan frowned. Why didn't you say so? But it's too late now. They're no longer just your enemies. They are mine too. The only ending for my enemies is death. Zhou Fan's hand tightened, and Shui Gang's eyes bulged out. He wasn't far off from dying. If you don't release him, I won't guide you. The beggar yelled in tears. Zhou Fan frowned. This was his first time seeing a person shed tears for their enemies. He let go, and Shui Gang dropped on the ground. Zhou Fan made a sign, and Blood Infant returned as he shrugged. Since you aren't scared, why would I be over some future inconvenience? He wiped the tears off the beggar's little face and walked away while holding the beggar close. Show the way. Then I will take you outside the city, far from Shui clan. Why, you baddie? The little beggar stammered. Zhou Fan sneered. Correct. I'm a bad man. But in this world, they're the only ones who can survive. The good guys have already left for hell. The beggar wiped his tears and looked at Zhou Fan. Unafraid, he had seen his fair share of bad people, but none rose to Zhou Fan's level. Yet he never felt any hatred for Zhou Fan as he did for others. Instead, he felt at ease. This feeling he didn't express, but it felt nice anyway. An hour later, a black figure appeared, standing in Zhou Fan's previous position. The old man's beard shivered from rage at the sight of the guards on the ground. He noticed Shui Gang twitching on the ground, helped him up, and asked nervously, Ganger, what's wrong? Who did this to you? Shui Gang gasped with a pale face, yet not one word was uttered. The old man looked him over and found that only Shui Gang's insides were wounded. While below him was a puddle of water, he gave Shui Gang a pill, then let out a long breath. But Shui Gang's injury astonished him. His wound wasn't heavy, only needing a month to heal. But his mind, however, had received a heavy shock. He was frightened so badly he peed himself. Ganger is a bold youth. Only a dreadful expert could have scared him to such a state in such a short time. The old man was bewildered as he pondered for a long time. In the end, he shook his head and left with Shui Gang. No matter who it was, any who dared offend Shui clan in Blue Expanse City would have another thing coming. Chapter 55, Peak Bone Tempering Stage. Chapter 55, Peak Bone Tempering Stage. That's the path up the mountain. The beggar and Zhou Fan poked their heads through a bush close to a narrow mountain path. Zhou Fan looked ahead and frowned, seeing 30 bone tempering guards with his strength and savage moon, along with Blood Infant's help. It wasn't hard to charge through. But to do it without anyone noticing was the problem. Any noise here would attract the elder from Hell Valley Station within. And since Shui clan's profound heaven expert was after him, he'd have a hard time coming out alive. After careful deliberation, Zhou Fan shook his head. He'd have to rely on the little beggar if he wanted to go within the mountain's range. Xiao Ning, where's the secret tunnel? Zhou Fan looked at the little beggar. The latter was still feeling afraid of what he had witnessed some time ago. He wasn't crying, but still sniffed. See, come with me, said the little beggar while sniffing hard. Then he and Zhou Fan vanished from the bushes. Zhou Fan felt helpless. Why is this kid more of a coward than a mouse? Ever since he saw what I did, he keeps crying from fear, even now. They were the enemies chasing you down. not your family. So why are you crying so hard? Zhuo Fan secretly cursed, but was resigned to his fate. Who told him to agree to this little beggar's deal? He imagined that after he followed the beggar to the mountain, he'd be facing some ferocious spiritual beast while the beggar kept crying at the side, sighing. Zhuo Fan traveled with the beggar through a dark forest. After a long time, they found a narrow tunnel next to a hidden stream. This is it. The beggar forced himself to stop sobbing, but his body still shivered. When I was little, I used to play with my dad and brothers in these woods. Zhuo Fan lifted an eyebrow as he inspected the cave and the surroundings. It was such a remote place that only a native would know if he guessed that the little beggar must have stumbled upon this cave when he was playing with his brothers, or the Hell Valley would have sealed it by now if they knew of it. All right, Xiao Ning. Go in first. I'll be right behind you. Zhuo Fan shouted as he pushed the little beggar in. He didn't think this place held a trap, but his years and years of experience still showed his cautious nature. The little beggar was aware of the meaning and rolled his eyes in anger and stooped to go in suddenly. A loud shout was heard, "Ninger, stop!" Whoosh! With the sound of the wind, a large figure blocked the two's path. The man looked like he was in his 40s and wore luxurious clothing over his tall and sturdy body. His pair of large eyes flashed with the explosive power of an expert, peak bone tempering expert. Zhuo Fan frowned and his hands tightened. "Are you the clan head of the Shui clan, Shui Wanlong?" "Good eyes," Shui Wanlong praised. "Were you the one who harmed my eldest son, Shui Gang?" "Indeed," Zhuo Fan smiled. "He wanted to take one of my people. Sparing him was already kind enough." "What, yours?" Shui Wanlong was shocked and turned to the little beggar. The little beggar blushed. As he hid behind Zhuo Fan, Shui Wanlong's expression turned weird. "Dad." Just then, a yell was heard. A youth in white landed next to Shui Wanlong. "Ha ha ha. I knew Ninger would be hiding here. Dad, let me help you take him back." The youth looked thrilled. He disregarded Zhuo Fan and flew to the little beggar. "Bastard, this kid is way too cocky, treating me like air." Zhuo Fan squinted and secretly cursed. When a youth was close to him, he struck with a red palm. The youth felt his energy turn sluggish and his blood vessels rupture. In this moment of deadly crisis, Zhuo Fan struck like lightning and grabbed his neck. "What are you doing?" Shui Wanlong roared. He didn't think his son would be caught so easily, to be honest. He saw Zhuo Fan as a fifth-layer qi condensation cultivator and was still skeptical of how he hurt his eldest son and guards, but now he knew compared to the kids he raised in his clan with all his heart, Zhuo Fan was akin to a savage beast bathed in blood. He was weaker, but his timing was perfect and his methods vicious. Before Zhuo Fan, his two sons were nothing more than greenhouse flowers. With a snicker, Zhuo Fan raised the youth up high. "A fifth-layer qi condensation cultivator. He must be your second son, Shuelin, right? Release him now, or you won't make it out alive." Shui Wanlong roared in anger, sneering. Zhuo Fan shook his head. "If I do as you say, you'd make sure I'm dead even more. Clan head Shui, no matter what grievances Xiao Ning has with you, he's my person. I only hope you will give up at this point." "Don't." Zhuo Fan's hand squeezed, and Shui Lin gasped with his tongue out. "And you will have your son as a corpse." "No!" The little beggar shouted before Shui Wanlong could reply. Grabbing Zhuo Fan's arm and begging with his eyes, Zhuo Fan was stunned. This beggar must have a screw loose. Why does he want to leave his enemies alive? Shui Wanlong watched them with a complicated gaze, but soon came to a decision and calmed down. This, in turn, startled Zhuo Fan. "Kid, what is your name?" Shui Wanlong asked. Zhuo Fan smiled. "I am alone and am not afraid of your revenge, nor am I afraid of telling you my name. It's Zhuo Fan." "All right, Zhuo Fan. You want to protect him no matter what?" Shui Wanlong pointed at the little beggar with a solemn look. Zhuo Fan snorted. "He is mine, so of course I will." "Good. Then let's make a bet. You let my son go and take 10 hits from me. If you win, I will no longer care about him. What do you say?" Squinting, Zhuo Fan considered Shui Wanlong's bet, then showed his manic grin as he threw Shui Lin away. "Aren't you afraid I will break my word?" Shui Wanlong's eyes flashed. Zhuo Fan sneered. "If I want to kill him, you won't be able to stop me." "Big words." Shui Wanlong was angry again. Here are my 10 moves. He charged with his peak bone-tempering power on display. But Zhuo Fan didn't seem to feel any discomfort. Standing there calmly, Shui Wanlong's brow trembled as he secretly praised Zhuo Fan, but before he reached Zhuo Fan, the latter also charged. This puzzled him greatly. Even if this kid is a seasoned fighter, he can't fend off a bone-tempering expert. So why? He saw Zhuo Fan's hand shine, and Savage Moon appear basked in a silver glow. Zhuo Fan sped up and was before Shui Wanlong in an instant, ready to attack third-grade demonic treasure. Shui Wanlong was shocked and turned to the side in an attempt to dodge, but a red light darted out from Zhuo Fan. Aimed at Shui Wanlong, got you. Zhuo Fan grinned with killing intent, but just as Blood Infant was about to enter Shui Wanlong, it was repelled. As it bounced off, Zhuo Fan felt his blood stirring from his connection with it. His hand moved, and he slashed with Savage Moon. The silver light trailed past Shui Wanlong's face when both of them stopped. Zhuo Fan was standing in Shui Wanlong's original place with a solemn look. Just now he had planned to take Shui Wanlong's life in one hit by using Blood Infant and Savage Moon, but unexpectedly, Blood Infant bounced off, and the recoil veered his attack. He turned back to see Shui Wanlong's chest flash and shouted, "Second-grade defensive demonic treasure." His heart grew heavy having found out the reason against such a defensive demonic treasure. His chi condensation Blood Infant was useless. He could only rely on Savage Moon in this battle as Zhuo Fan felt gloomy about the upcoming fight. Shui Wanlong's jaw dropped in shock. He didn't foresee that a fifth-layer chi condensation kid would have such terrifying power. If he was a moment too late, his head would have been sent flying right now. Recalling his bet with Zhuo Fan, he felt a cold shiver run down his spine. Blasted as the matter stands, it'll be good if I can at least keep my head after 10 moves. He then looked at the chainmail on his chest and sighed. Thanks to his father warning him that the man who took Ninger might have been an expert, he wore this armor. He was unclear as to what was Blood Infant's use. But he knew death wouldn't be far away once it got into his body. Then he turned to Zhuo Fan, who was looking at him as if to devour him, and broke out in cold sweat. This was his first time meeting such a dreadful opponent. Even more so when this opponent was in the 5th layer of chi condensation. Damn it, is this kid a monster? Gnashing his teeth, Shui Wanlong braced himself for what's to come. Chapter 56, Mystifying Phantom Step. Chapter 56, Mystifying Phantom Step. Zhuo Fan stared at Shui Wanlong, thinking hard for a way to finish his enemy. Shui Wanlong was the same, yet his eyes seemed lost. He saw no hesitation from Zhuo Fan, but a naked taunt instead. This was not how a chi condensation cultivator was supposed to stare at a bone-tempering expert. It was more akin to a savage beast staring down its prey, and he didn't like it one bit. Being stared down by someone weaker than me feels like I've lost all respect. He decided to rush for an attack and strike awe in this kid, but Zhuo Fan got ahead of him and ran for him second move. Zhuo Fan's sudden action startled him, but soon recalled who he was. Even if it was against a punk, he wasn't about to make a fool of himself. Moreover, only Savage Moon was a threat to him. If he paid attention to it, he'd be fine. It would be no problem lasting 10 moves if his thoughts were known to others. It would leave them speechless in a fight between peak bone-tempering expert and a chi condensation kid. The former, who thought this was but a cat-and-mouse game, was now thinking how to survive 10 moves. Who the hell was strong, and who was weak then? And more importantly, who in the hell told him to make a 10 moves bet in the first place? But he had no time to mind such trifles as Zhuo Fan had turned into a silver light. Seeing the silver light approach him, Shui Wanlong exploded with power and retreated. It could be said that he was being wary of Savage Moon, but he was even more afraid that he would end up making an embarrassing scene. Shui Lin, who was thrown down, coughed twice, then stared in shock. "Dad, you were the one who brought up the 10 moves bet, not the other way around." Shui Wanlong's face froze, itching to run over and kick his son's rear real good. "Can you be even more oblivious? This kid's toy is sharp, and you wanted to play around with death?" Shui Lin was ignorant of his dad's struggle and kept cheering. But Shui Wanlong's face was getting more and more ashen. Zhuo Fan didn't even get to touch Shui Wanlong's clothes in the first 5 moves. But he saw through Shui Wanlong's intention and became bold with a manic grin. Zhuo Fan declared, "Sixth move." He sped up for another attack, while Shui Wanlong was prepared to dodge, but this time, Zhuo Fan stepped lightly and turned into three figures, surrounding Shui Wanlong. Three silver lights approached Shui Wanlong in a threatening manner from different directions. Shui Wanlong was startled. But as a peak bone tempering expert, he didn't lose his calm. He kicked the ground and made it explode. The force helped him dodge backwards, almost enough to escape the encirclement, but Zhuo Fan sneered and stepped again. Whoosh! The images dissipated. However, Zhuo Fan appeared from behind Shui Wanlong and cut past his ear. Low spirit ranked martial art, mystifying phantom step. The two stopped again, with Zhuo Fan standing 3 meters away from his opponent with a smile. Shui Wanlong stood there watching a strand of black hair floating before him. I lost. He couldn't believe it. What was meant to be a test for the kid ended with his complete loss in the sixth move. He didn't sense Zhuo Fan behind him. But since Zhuo Fan could cut his hair just as well, it could have been his head in other words. Zhuo Fan was going easy on him. Shui Wanlong swallowed dryly. He was going all out from the second move. But even so, impossible. The beggar and Shui Lin yelled at the same time. They found it hard to accept that such a powerful expert lost to their peer. Dad, you must have gone easy on purpose, right? Shui Lin ran next to Shui Wanlong with expectation in his eyes. But Shui Wanlong didn't comment. Zhuo Fan watched them coldly. Of course, clan head Shui went easy. His first move was just a test, without killing intent. If Dad hadn't gone easy, you'd be dead. Shui Lin was grasping for straws here when he stuck out his chin in derision. But Zhuo Fan just sneered, "Terribly sorry your dad didn't go all out. But if he had, his head would have been lying on the ground by now." Zhuo Fan wasn't saying to scare people, although his first attempt with Blood Infant failed. It only meant that he lost the initiative completely. And that didn't equal losing his chance to kill Shui Wanlong. A bone-tempering expert lacks speed in comparison to a profound heaven expert. With Savage Moon's assist, Zhuo Fan's speed matched a bone-tempering expert. So he still had a chance with his speed. What was left then was to deliver a killing blow at the perfect timing. If Zhuo Fan was in the fourth layer of qi condensation, it would have been impossible. But in the fifth layer, he could use spirit-ranked martial arts, and the first one he trained was mystifying phantom step. This was not your average martial art, but one coming from 9 Serenity's secret records, a rare martial art that made use of an array's advantage. The phantom part wasn't important, but it was crucial to bait the opponent. The true killing move came from the mystified path he drew his opponent in with this martial art. Zhuo Fan could teleport anywhere within a short range during their fight. The phantoms took all of Shui Wanlong's attention and made him ignore the sudden appearance of Zhuo Fan behind him. If Zhuo Fan had sensed any killing intent in their fight, he would have chopped Shui Wanlong's head off. Shui Wanlong was more than clear on this and accepted his defeat. Zhuo Fan, with a sigh, Shui Wanlong stared at him solemnly. "You're the most reliable youth I've ever seen. I will leave Ninger with you. Don't fail him." Zhuo Fan was puzzled. What does he mean by that? But Shui Wanlong didn't explain and hugged the little beggar. "Ninger, go and don't return. Follow your dreams." "Dad!" The little beggar cried Rivers. Zhuo Fan watched in shock. "Dad? When did Shui Wanlong have a third son?" But soon he yelled, "Hold on, your third young miss, Xuaningxiang." Rolling his eyes, Shui Wanlong patted Zhuo Fan's shoulder. "Kid, I thought you were smart, but you found this out only now. Anyway, you said it yourself that she is yours, so I'm leaving her in your care. If I find out that you mistreated my daughter in any way, I will wring your life from your body." "In no way. What is going on here?" Zhuo Fan was slack-jawed. All this time he'd been fighting the little beggar's father and was so close to ending her entire family. It's obvious now why she always glared at me with such hatred. Sighing, Shui Wanlong took one last look at his tearing daughter and left with Shui Lin after going some distance. Shui Lin said, "Dad, if we don't get Ninger back, how do we explain it to Hell Valley?" "Quiet, I have a way." Xuaningxiang. Zhuo Fan stepped before the little beggar and tossed her cap. Jet black silky hair cascaded the little beggar, who was still lost in tears as she watched her father leave. yelped when this happened, and hurriedly held her head. She faced him with a blushed face, but didn't meet his eyes. "Miss Ning, what's your game? Here I was fighting with your father, thinking of helping you vent your anger, but, in fact, it was for nothing." Xuanning Xiang took 2 steps back, muttering as she looked at his angry face. "Brother Zhua, don't be angry. I only want to leave the city while you want to go to All Beast Mountain Range. We'll each get what we want." Zhua Fan was startled. Then again, she's right. As long as I get what I want, who cares if they're a family of archenemies? Each gets what he wants. This Missy speaks reason. Will I, demonic emperor, get angry because she lied to me? Anyway, this has nothing to do with me. But then Zhua Fan was startled once again. Since when have I been so emotional? With a frown, Zhua Fan recalled everything that happened since his rebirth. He then realized that being in contact with the Luo clan over the past months made him show consideration to the people around him, even without his knowledge. This wasn't how a demonic cultivator acted at all. Damn it, I don't need these useless feelings. I have to change. I have to. Zhua Fan reminded himself again and again. His face then turned serene, void of any emotion. "Xuanning Xiang, let's go." Zhua Fan pointed at the cave and said in a cold tone, "Once I'm done with All Beast Mountain Range, I will take you out. At that time, our deal is done." Xuanning Xiang looked long at him, then nodded. Zhua Fan's behavior changed way too fast, as if he was a different person to begin with. Zhua Fan wasn't a good man in her mind, but now he became neither good nor bad, but cold and unfeeling. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Chapter 57, Golden Spring Pool. Chapter 57, Golden Spring Pool. All Beast Mountain Range. Deep in the forest in a remote thicket, a rabbit was chewing on tender, juicy grass. Suddenly, the rabbit straightened its ears and bolted a moment later. A black hand extended out from the ground, followed by the slow crawl of the little beggar. But as she was crawling, she was flung out with a loud sound, as if a palm had slapped her. "Get out already!" Zhua Fan scowled and came out after the beggar flew. He was just as filthy as the beggar and looked as if he had crawled through a cramped coal mine. The tunnel was winding and almost half a mile long. It was also damp and smelled of rot. He couldn't understand for the life of him what was so great about playing in this place as kids. Xuanning Xiang got on her feet, rubbed her rear, and then glared at him. "You're the worst. I show you the way, and this is my thanks?" "Yes, I'm a scoundrel." Zhua Fan didn't argue with her, and had his eyes peeled, scanning the surrounding as he heard the seldom roar of spiritual beasts. He now knew that this was indeed All Beast Mountain Range. Looking at his filthy appearance, he shook his head and turned to Xuanning Xiang. "Hey, is there any river nearby?" Rolling her eyes, Xuanning Xiang began walking. "Follow me." Zhua Fan smiled and followed her. 15 minutes later, the sound of water reached their ears. He perked up and sped. His eyes were soon rewarded with the sight of a wide river flowing with clear water and small fishes. With a shout, Zhua Fan leapt in despite a female's presence. His clothes then flew out. Xuanning Xiang whipped her body around in shame and snapped, "You rogue, what are you doing? What do you think, bathing?" Zhua Fan snorted as he bathed with no regard to her presence. "I'll get out after I finish. Do what you want. If you wish, we can bathe together. I don't mind." "Damn you, who wants to bathe with you?" Xuanning Xiang didn't turn around, only mumbled with irritation, "Shameless." Zhua Fan heard her loud and clear, though. If demonic cultivators cared about reputation, what are righteous cultivators then? A quarter of an hour later, Zhua Fan came out of the river and put on a new robe from his ring. He patted Xuanning Xiang's shoulder. "Let's go. Where is the diamond sand going to appear?" Xuanning Xiang was a bit nervous, seeing Zhua Fan wanted to leave. She stood there in hesitation and was too embarrassed to speak. Zhua Fan raised an eyebrow. "What? Show the way. Didn't we have a deal?" But, Xuanning Xiang muttered shyly, "I haven't washed yet." Zhua Fan's eyebrow twitched, and he exposed an enigmatic smile. "I told you to wash, but you refused. Since you haven't, then that's that. I won't avoid you either way." But, Xuanning Xiang was even more embarrassed now. She put on a disguise to run away from home. But she was a girl, and girls love beauty. So how could she allow herself to stay dirty? Zhua Fan knew this too, but he was just teasing the hell out of her. Who told her to deceive me? Xuanning was swaying from one foot to the other, but didn't speak. But when she caught Zhua Fan's faint smile, she knew he was teasing her pissed. She threw her hat in his face and walked to the river, but after a few steps, she turned to warn Zhua Fan, "Why you better not peek." Zhua Fan mocked as he left. "I'm not interested in unripe fruits." Unripe? Xuanning was startled, then looked down at her chest and pushed out unconvinced. "Humph, where my unripe?" But Zhua Fan had already disappeared among the trees. Xuanning pouted and returned to the river with a gloomy heart half an hour later. Zhua Fan was laying carefree on a bush, holding a straw in his mouth and contemplating his next course of action. The bushes around him moved at that moment, and Zhua Fan looked over with a smile. "Oh, you're finally done. Little miss, can we go now?" "Why, yeah." With a shy reply, the bushes were pushed aside. A white-clothed, delicate girl slowly walked out. She wasn't gorgeous, but she had a lively air about her. She was like a bouquet of fresh and pure flowers. Even Zhua Fan was startled by her image. He didn't think that the dirty little beggar from before would transform into a gentle swan. Xuanning reddened a bit from his constant staring. She coughed, and Zhua Fan smiled embarrassingly. Lady Xue, please lead the way." Changing his mannerism after encountering a belle, Zhua Fan started to despise himself a bit. Since when have I become so shameless? Yet the end result was that he found it refreshing walking side by side with a belle. 2 hours later, Xuanning brought him to a hilltop. Zhua Fan was puzzled. Since the diamond sand is coming out, there should be plenty of people around. Why is it deserted? Xuanning shook her head and rolled her eyes. "Brother Zhua, I thought you were smart. How come you are so stupid all of a sudden?" Zhua Fan watched her skeptically. "If we go in right now, we'll be caught. That is why I led you here." Xuanning pulled Zhua Fan's hand and went higher up the hill and pointed. "That is the place where the diamond sand will erupt." Looking over, Zhua Fan saw many figures, 50 in number, defending a pond. The pond seemed to be connected to a hot spring as it was bubbling in the center. On a stone rising from the water sat a gray-robed, white-haired elder with his eyes closed. The air was warm around him, but the steam from the hot spring vanished the closer it got to him, so much so that not even his hair was wet. Such deep cultivation. Is he a profound heaven expert? Zhua Fan frowned in panic suddenly. That elder snapped his eyes open and looked in Zhua Fan's direction. His eyes were sharp and landed like lightning on his position. "Get down." Zhua Fan pulled Xuanning to lie on a rock as cold sweat ran all over his body. Such a sharp instinct. He is a profound heaven expert for sure. "Correct." Xuanning nodded. He is Hell Valley's elder overseeing Blue Expanse City for the past dozen years. Last month, he found that the Golden Spring Pool released a lot of diamond sand and has stood watch here ever since. The 50 people around him are also bone tempering experts. Zhua Fan nodded before diamond sand erupted. It would cause the flowing gold tide. But the flowing gold tide would only contain trace amounts of diamond sand. But 3 months from then, the diamond sand would erupt for sure. To get all the diamond sand before others, they place guards. But who is to say the diamond sand would erupt from here? Zhua Fan frowned as he thought. With his power, he had no hope of stealing the diamond sand. Unless... His eyes flashed and pulled Xuanning off the hilltop. "What, you have a way?" Seeing Zhua Fan confident, Xuanning was startled. She was already shocked that he could beat her family. But could he also have the power to win against a profound heaven cultivator and a team of bone-tempering experts? Zhua Fan shook his head. "If you can't beat them, outwit them. Let's go. I want you to find a little pet for me." Xuanning was puzzled in the golden spring pool. The elder's eyes were filled with confusion. Did I sensed wrongly? At the same time, in Blue Expanse City, Xue Wanlong took Xue Lin's dirty figure home. In the main hall of the Xue clan sat a wizened old man in the seat of honor, watching the two. Then he suddenly jumped his feet. "How is it? Did you bring Ningyu? Did you deal with the culprit that harmed Gangyu?" Sighing, Xue Wanlong shook his head. "Dad, I let them go. That kid is not bad, so I entrusted Ninger to him. As for him injuring Ganger, he did not know any better. As long as he takes care of Ninger, I do not mind it. What? That man is Ninger's, the old man spouted in shock, nodding. Shui Wanlong said that kid said Ninger was his. Ninger was also willing, so we can assume so. Fool! The old man slapped the table with a howl. Wanlong, no matter who the kid is, even if you disregard what he did to Ganga, Ninger can never, ever be taken away. You know that if she leaves, our Shui clan. Even though he was angry, his eyes revealed sadness. Shui Wanlong looked at his father with firm eyes as he said, Dad, let Ninger go. I will take full responsibility. You take shit. Can you keep the young and old safe? The old man roared. Wanlong, I know you love your daughter, but you think I don't? But Shui clan. Sighing, the old man's face hardened. Where did they go? Shui Wanlong was vexed, but still spoke as he closed his eyes. All Beast Mountain Range. Whoosh! In an instant, the old man vanished. Chapter 58, Mystery Guy. Chapter 58, Mystery Guy. Zhou Fan and Xuan Ningxiang were searching through bushes in All Beast Mountain Range. Xuan Ningxiang was unsettled. Not knowing where he was going with this, Zhou Fan suddenly shouted in glee and held out something dirty. Found it! Xuan Ningxiang blinked in curiosity at the thing. What is it? What does it do? Sweet potato. Zhou Fan gave a vague smile and continued. The one thing that first-level spiritual beast burrowing mouse likes the most. Xuan Ningxiang's eyes flashed and yelled, Great plan. You want to use a burrowing mouse to make a tunnel and steal the diamond sand. The burrowing mouse didn't know how to fight, and even a Foundation establishment cultivator could capture it easily. But its burrowing skill was second to none. Just one of these critters could dig through a 1,000-mile-long mountain range in an hour. Zhou Fan didn't reply and showed a faint smile. Xuan Ningxiang felt even more suspicious now. No one seemed to be able to unravel the insidious mind of Zhou Fan. A moment later, Zhou Fan took Xuan Ningxiang far away from the Golden Spring Pool and made a fire in which he threw the sweet potatoes soon. A sweet aroma wafted for 100 miles. Many spiritual beasts raised their heads and began searching for the source. Zhou Fan took Xuan Ningxiang to lay in ambush close by. Their eyes fixed on the fire, the bushes rustled, and many spiritual beasts, big and small, approached the fire. They prodded the black lumps in the fire, wanting to find out from where the sweet smell came from. To no avail, Zhou Fan secretly laughed and smiled at Xuan Ningxiang. In fact, the two took the cooked sweet potato long ago. They only left it inside enough to release its sweet smell and attract the burrowing mouse. If not, the other spiritual beasts would have taken it away and ruined their plan. More and more spiritual beasts came and searched, but found nothing. However, the soil next to the fire moved as it bulged outwards to no more than a fist in size. Zhou Fan stood up slowly and got ready suddenly. The bulge of dirt broke away. A creature with a black mouth on its tiny head came out. It roamed around the fire a few times and sniffed now. Zhou Fan screamed in his mind as he shot for the fire. The spiritual beasts which gathered around the fire were only at first and second level, ran away at the sudden noise. Only the burrowing mouse was oblivious to what was happening, but its intuition as a spiritual beast gave it a bit of insight that danger was looming. It immediately started moving its claw, wanting to burrow, but it was too late. Zhou Fan already flashed before it and grabbed its tail. The burrowing mouse struggled for its life in panic. But there was no escape from the demonic palm of Zhou Fan. Hey, buddy, you want to run? With a manic grin, Zhou Fan grabbed the critter's frail body and squeezed. It screeched in pain and flailed its claws. Xuan Ningxiang couldn't take it anymore and took the poor thing close to her chest. She patted it and threw Zhou Fan an evil eye. How can you be so cruel? What if you hurt it? Humph, spiritual beasts don't get bruised easily. Zhou Fan snorted. We need to hurry and tame it or we won't get another chance. But you don't need to be such a bore about it. My clan had raised some small spiritual beasts before, and even if they were wild, they still listened to me. Xuan Ningxiang comforted the poor critter with a sweet smile. Isn't that right, little one? The burrowing mouse seemed to understand and nodded, then glared at Zhou Fan. Curses, Buddy, you're pushing it here. Zhuo Fan raged inside, itching to get his hand on the prick. But it was impossible, not with Xuan Ningxiang guarding it like a tigress. But then an idea struck him, and his manic grin returned. The burrowing mouse shivered at the sight of him, and hid in Xuan Ningxiang's chest. What are you trying to do? Xuan Ningxiang warned Zhuo Fan as she stepped back. His face flipped to a gentle smile as a gourd appeared on his palm. It's all right. I won't harm the little one. I only want to swallow something. Then he took out a blood-red worm from the gourd. It was the demonic creature he had raised with great care. Frigid pool bloodworm. Any creature that ingested it would have no choice but to listen to his commands, or the blood curse would claim their lives. If not for time being an issue, he wouldn't have wanted to waste a bloodworm on a first-level spiritual beast. What is that? So disgusting. Xuan Ningxiang frowned and took another step back. The burrowing mouse also sensed the danger, and hid in her chest. Zhuo Fan was dead serious. We have two ways we can tame the little guy fast. Either let me train it for a day, or he eats this. Xuan Ningxiang saw Zhuo Fan's face, and she knew if she refused, he'd use force. Helpless, Xuan Ningxiang took the burrowing mouse out and patted its head. Little one, it's better if you eat it. Although it's a tad disgusting, it's better than landing in that guy's hands. Xuan Ningxiang said as she walked towards Zhuo Fan with a sinister smile. Zhuo Fan inched the bloodworm close to the burrowing mouse's mouth. The critter struggled, but it was of no use. The bloodworm was about to enter its mouth at that moment. However, a whoosh was heard. Zhuo Fan pushed Xuan Ningxiang away as he moved back himself. Watch out. A cold light passed between them. The freezing ray almost touched Zhuo Fan's fingers as it cut the wiggling bloodworm clean in half. He was aware of the killing intent the ray contained. Zhuo Fan turned to see a tall youth not 10 meters away. He looked to be 20 years old and had a handsome visage. His eyes flashed with coldness, like a pair of sharp blades. At the two of them, the burrowing mouse shrieked a few times and ran from Xuan Ningxiang's hands and climbed up his body to his shoulder. It has a master? Zhuo Fan scowled. The youth snorted at the two. You've both got some nerve. I am my spirit animal. Sorry, it wasn't on purpose. Zhuo Fan stopped Xuan Ningxiang's explanation with a wave and pushed her behind him. It doesn't matter if it has a master or not. We need it today. Ha ha, big words. The youth sneered. One insect is in the 5th layer of chi condensation, while the other in the 4th. Yet you still want to tame what is mine? Fine, guess I'll have to end you. Humph, we will see about that. Sneering, Zhuo Fan rushed at the youth as Savage Moon flashed in his hand. 3rd grade demonic treasure. Raising an eyebrow, the youth lost the contempt he had before. This demonic treasure was a threat to his life, and in all his teachings he received, one needed to go all out regardless of the enemy. His eyes gleamed as he dashed at Zhuo Fan. His hand flashed, and it now held a long sword in an instant. The world seemed to freeze over. The sky and the earth seemed to vanish as flickering lights spewed from the sword. Empty net. Whoosh. Zhuo Fan suddenly slowed down amid his charge. Even his surroundings were sluggish, while the only thing unaffected was the long sword. Profound ranked martial art, 7th layer of bone tempering stage, and 4th grade spiritual weapon. Squinting, Zhuo Fan started to take this seriously. This youth wasn't average. It was hard enough reaching such cultivation at his age, but he had also grasped a profound ranked martial art and used a 4th grade spiritual weapon. In the Qianyu Empire, rare were those like him, even in the 7 noble houses. And exactly that was the answer. This man could be a core disciple of the 7 noble houses, perhaps even an inheritor. Today Zhuo Fan offended him, and tomorrow trouble would come knocking. The only choice was to kill him. In an instant, Zhuo Fan's eyes exploded with killing intent. The youth was startled. Am I not the one holding the advantage? Why is this kid releasing such thick killing intent? Does he think he can actually kill me? The next moment, however, Zhuo Fan's action left him pale. Despite knowing that he was slowed down, Zhuo Fan only took a step and turned into 5 images of himself. Sneering, the youth grinned. Think you can act tough with such a base-level killing move? The youth's sword turned into 5 and struck each figure down. But at that moment, Zhuo Fan's voice came from behind him. Nice sword skill. Too bad you met me. The youth jumped in fright. When did he get behind me? In this moment of imminent danger, he stabbed backwards. The sword art's aim was perfect, targeting Juofan's chest. Juofan looked down calmly, with slight praise in his heart. Too bad it's over. Whoosh! Juofan ignored the sword going for his chest and slashed at the youth's waist. If this continued, it would end with Juofan being gravely wounded and the youth dead. A wound for a kill, worth it. Chapter 59. Sword Marquis' Abode of the Seven Noble Houses. Chapter 59. Sword Marquis' Abode of the Seven Noble Houses. Ding! Juofan slashed with full power, but a metal screech echoed, and Savage Moon bounced back. He squinted as his heart was in a panic. This punk has a spiritual armor besides the spiritual weapon. But the timing didn't even let him think. The youth's sword was getting dangerously close to his chest. In this wound for a kill scenario, his opponent would come unharmed while he would be too wounded to continue fighting. Damn it, I miscalculated this time. Juofan secretly cursed and used the Savage Moon's rebound to save himself. Not for the life of him did he think this freaking punk to be this rich. Even an elder from Hell Valley had a single demonic treasure at best. But this punk here was wielding one while wearing another. Who the hell is he? Bam! With no more time to think, Juofan's Savage Moon and the golden sword struck each other with a loud sound. Juofan flew back due to the force. The blood in his chest flowed erratically and forced him to spew blood. He hit the dirt, and the Savage Moon clanked next to him in two. His brow shivered as he turned solemn. He has a 4th-grade spiritual armor on him that my blood infant can't get through. The only way to hurt him was with Savage Moon. But Savage Moon is now in pieces. This was the first time since his rebirth that Juofan met such a danger to his life. The youth was in the 7th layer of bone tempering stage, had a spiritual weapon, had a spiritual armor, and even profound ranked martial arts. I can't punch through his defense, and I can only take a beating. But the worst part was, the youth used all his power against someone weaker. Everyone was afraid of the serious types. This will make it even harder for him to make any mistakes for me to exploit. How do I fight him? Juofan stared down the figure while his forehead ran cold with sweat, yet who'd have known that the youth's mental state mirrored his, maybe even more terrified. The youth was known as a genius among geniuses in his clan. He learned the sword all his life and never lost. But against Juofan, who was weaker, he was one move away from dying even when he exerted his all. If not for the spiritual armor, he'd be dead. Dead from a man weaker than him by a stage. He just couldn't get over this. He was an exceptional genius who could defeat a peak bone tempering expert in a single move. He was the clan's successor. How could? The youth's brow was sweating bullets and gnashed his teeth at Juofan. Brother, what is your name? Juofan was startled and saw the change in the youth's eyes. Guessing he wouldn't keep on wanting to kill them, he replied, Juofan. I'll remember you. We'll finish this the next time we meet. That youth sheathed his sword, took his burrowing mouse, and was about to leave. Juofan rushed to say, Wait. Do you stop? What is it? Dare, I asked, brother. Are you also here for the diamond sand? The youth stared at Juofan. What if I am? What if I'm not? Juofan smiled. If not, then let's part ways. If you are, want to work together? Work together? The youth frowned and took a long look at the two. How? Not even the 3 of us are enough to steal one speck of diamond sand. Not long back, this youth viewed them as nothing more than insects, but his words just now showed his respect for Juofan's strength. As someone equal to him, Juofan grinned inside. We can negotiate like this. Brother has a burrowing mouse, so you plan to avoid fighting them. The youth smiled, so we had the same idea. I see why you wanted this guy, but this burrowing mouse is mine. What can you bring if we team up? The correct way of using the burrowing mouse. Juofan continued with a smile. How is brother going to use it to get the diamond sand? The youth squinted and replied with another question. How about you? Dig a tunnel, wait for the diamond sand to erupt, and we steal some. Xuanning Xiang spoke out of turn, but her response only earned a laughter of the two until her face went red. She glared. Why are you laughing? Am I wrong? The youth shook his head. Lady, they have a profound heaven expert, So how could it work? You'll be caught before you even make a move. Zhuo Fan nodded. In any case, my silly sister raised an option we definitely must avoid. What about you? Xue Ningxiang glared at Zhuo Fan for making fun of her. But her face became red again for some other reason. The youth spoke simply. Easy, the diamond sand is pushed by the deep earth and comes out as a spring. I will have the burrowing mouse dig a small tunnel from the main course to direct a part of the diamond sand to me. Zhuo Fan clapped, and Xue Ningxiang praised the brilliance of it. Great plan. The youth smiled with pride, but Zhuo Fan shook his head. If I were you, this would also be the best plan. The youth frowned. You have a better way then? Ha ha ha, of course. Why would I work with you if I didn't? Zhuo Fan smiled as he continued. Your plan won't earn you even 1,000th. Since there are so many types of earth layers beneath us, the diamond sand will be stuck along the way, and you'll get even less. What's your idea then? The youth stared at him with a mysterious smile. Zhuo Fan stuck out his chin. If brother believes me, I can get all of it, leaving nothing to Hell Valley. We will later split it evenly. What do you say? How can that be? The youth watched them in shock, but Zhuo Fan was confident. My skill is making impossible possible. This got the youth to recall Zhuo Fan's close call in killing him and nodded. Fine, I believe you. How we do it? Splendid. Zhuo Fan laughed. We are now partners. How should I address brother? Xie Tianyang. The youth spoke loud and clear. Zhuo Fan frowned. Xie, you mean you're from the 7 noble houses Sword Marquis abode? Waving his hand, Xie Tianyang smiled vaguely. But they all figure out, even if Zhuo Fan didn't get to finish. Xue Ningxiang watched the youth for a long time in shock. Second-rate clans like the Xue clan relied on the protection of the 7 noble houses. Just that she never got to leave Blue Expanse City, not once in her life, and the only 7 noble houses people she saw were from Hell Valley. Oh, Brother Zhuo, what house do you come from that you're so amazing? Xue Ningxiang couldn't help but wonder as Zhuo Fan was so young and yet no less powerful than Xie Tianyang. In fact, Zhuo Fan could have struck this disciple of Sword Marquis abode dead, if not for the spiritual armor. Thus, Zhuo Fan had to be from a special background. Xie Tianyang also turned to Zhuo Fan with eager eyes. He wanted to know just which house gave birth to such a monster. Zhuo Fan shook his head with a smile. I'm no one important, just a small steward in the Luo clan of Wind Gaze City. Steward? Luo clan. The two were shocked. Luo clan? Never heard of it. Ha ha ha. It's quite normal for you to not know. Luo clan is just a third-rate clan. Zhuo Fan smiled this time. Both of them eyed him with suspicion. They would never believe that a trifling clan could raise such an expert. Not even the imperial family and the 7 houses had many like him. Brother, if what you said is true, you are welcome to join Sword Marquis' abode. Xie Tianyang's eyes shined as he patted Zhuo Fan's shoulder. It mattered little if Zhuo Fan was being honest. He was an unpolished gem nonetheless. With Zhuo Fan joining the Sword Marquis' abode, the Luo clan would one day be a second-rate clan, maybe even a peak second-rate with the house's assistance. The Sword Marquis' abode would at that time grow in power even more. For one of the 7 noble houses to personally ask for a clan to sign an agreement with them would stir all other small clans into crying if they found out. But Zhuo Fan only disdained this act, knowing where Xie Tianyang was going with this. Zhuo Fan smiled. Hey, you're late. I already signed an alliance agreement with Veiled Dragon Pavilion. But if Sword Marquis' abode wants to sign a similar agreement, I'd be happy to oblige. What? Zhuo Fan just dropped a bomb that shocked the other two to their cores. Alliance agreement? Veiled Dragon Pavilion. Why would Veiled Dragon Pavilion do this for a small clan? Chapter 60, 1,000-mile-long array. Chapter 60, 1,000-mile-long array. Xue Ningxiang and Xie Tianyang took long skeptical looks at Zhuo Fan. From Zhuo Fan's reaction, it could be said he spoke the truth. But this news was too outrageous, even worse than if the heaven and earth switched places. The 7 noble houses could stand shoulder to shoulder with the imperial family. If they discovered a clan with great potential, signing a vassal agreement was more appropriate, but an alliance agreement only ever happened between the 7 noble houses, yet this gap in power between the house and the clan breached by an alliance agreement made it look like the emperor went out to a beggar and called him brother. Such an act would make them, the 7 houses and the emperor, look like charitable folks. But this was fundamentally impossible. Just how did Zhuo Fan do it? Xie Tianyang watched Zhuo Fan closely, but shook his head in the end. Brother, it's fine if you don't want to say it. But do you have to lie to us so openly? Xue Ningxiang rolled her eyes while whining. Brother Zhuo, we told you everything about us, while you still keep your secret. This is not proper. Zhuo Fan shook his head. The truth was taken as lies by others, and he did not know how to respond. All right, Brother Zhuo, let's forget it. We'll be going our separate ways when this is over anyway, with little chance of meeting again. There's no need to know everything about each other. Then, Xie Tianyang clapped. We had better listen to Brother Zhuo's plan. Zhuo Fan nodded with a smile. He liked Xie Tianyang's attitude a lot. There was no eternal enemies and friends in the world, only benefits. They were friends now, thanks to a mutual goal, but tomorrow they might be on opposite sides. There was no need to know too much about each other, quite the contrary. It would be best to hide one's secret and protect one's identity. Only Xue Ningxiang pouted. Since we were brought together by fate, why can't we be friends? Zhuo Fan and Xie Tianyang just smiled. Zhuo Fan then retrieved a piece of paper from his ring and began to write on it. 15 minutes later, a strange design adorned it. Xue Ningxiang was looking puzzled, while Xie Tianyang was feeling more and more astonished with each brushwork. Xie Tianyang watched the finished design in shock. A first-grade array. But I've never seen this one in my life, and I've seen my fair share. Zhuo Fan secretly nodded. Xie Tianyang was from the 7 houses, and, just like Long Kuei, he had learned of arrays from a young age. But few parts of this array were from an ancient era and not seen today. Thus, he could not understand the array completely. Xie Tianyang studied the design for a long time, then looked at Zhuo Fan with a firm gaze. You're from his 7 houses, no? Maybe even imperial? He wasn't certain, because the more he got to know Zhuo Fan, the more Zhuo Fan's talent scared him. So much that he couldn't ascertain which house Zhuo Fan belonged to. He even felt the 7 houses couldn't have raised such a monstrous talent. Then the only one above the houses was the imperial family. Zhuo Fan shook his head. I already said it. It's up to you to believe or not, but now we're working together. Xie Tianyang gave a strained nod. Follow me. Zhuo Fan took out a map and walked ahead with the other 2 close behind. After half a day, Zhuo Fan reached a stream. He gave the area a once-over and nodded. Xue Ningxiang and Xie Tianyang were filled with curiosity. This place was even farther away from the Golden Spring Pool, and near the border to the second area in the All-Beast Mountain Range. All-Beast Mountain Range was split into 3 areas based on how dangerous the spiritual beasts were. The first area was the safest, with only first and second level spiritual beasts roaming around, and the seldom third level. These were suited for foundation establishment and chi condensation cultivators to catch as spirit animals. And the Golden Spring Pool was in this area. The second area was the treasure hunting area, a place where 3rd and 4th level spiritual beasts came and went as they pleased. Entering it while being below the bone tempering stage equaled death. But this area was filled with spiritual beasts, an important place for where strong experts got their spirit animals. The third area was deemed as the danger zone. The spiritual beasts here were of 5th and 6th level. Even a radiant stage expert would die here. As such, if one didn't have absolute confidence in his power, he would not step foot here. Zhuo Fan was now standing near the border between the first and second areas. Once they entered the second area, Xue Ningxiang, with her chi condensation cultivation, would find death lurking at every corner. Zhuo Fan took a deep breath and nodded. This is it. Xue Ningxiang and Xie Tianyang were puzzled, but Zhuo Fan waved. Brother Tianyang, I'll be counting on your burrowing mouse to dig a tunnel to the Golden Spring Pool. Then keep digging along this pattern. Zhuo Fan pointed on the map. This is where the Golden Spring Pool is. What? Xie Tianyang said, startled. For it to dig to the Golden Spring Pool is not a problem, but for it to arrange spirit stones and set an array, it will take more than 1,000 trips. Correct. 3221 to be exact. Zhua Fan nodded. Burrowing mouse is small and can only carry one spirit stone at a time. This means it will take 3,221 trips to set the array around the Golden Spring Pool. Xie Tianyang gasped, and Xuan Ningxiang went slack-jawed. You want to work it to death? Even the burrowing mouse seemed to understand and collapsed on Xie Tianyang's shoulder. Shit, this punk is after my life. I can't do this idiotic thing, or it'll be the death of me. Burrowing mouse shut its eyes. Even when it fell from the shoulder and landed on a rock, it wouldn't open them. Though its twitching gave it away, Zhua Fan smirked and ignored the critter while talking to its owner. Time is of the essence. Diamond sand could erupt at any minute, so get your critter step on it. Is there no other way? Xie Tianyang asked with a solemn expression. Zhua Fan smiled. If you can snatch the diamond sand from right under their noses, then be my guest. Xie Tianyang watched the unmoving critter on the ground with pity. Zhua Fan added an incentive. There's a lot more burrowing mouse where he comes from, but as for diamond sand, hee, only if you listen to me will you make a killing. Spurred on, Xie Tianyang's eyes flashed, and he nodded. Fine, it's just a first-level spirit animal anyway. Who would need it? Ha ha ha. The burrowing mouse jumped to its feet and pleaded to its owner with teary eyes. Master, how can you be so cruel? I'll end up working to the bone. But Xie Tianyang was too far gone to notice its gesture, as he and Zhua Fan looked like demons with their manic grins at the poor critter. Xue Ningxiang watched the cuddly and pitiful little one, and her heart swelled with love. She hugged it and comforted it as she glared at the two demons, but why would any of them care about a critter when diamond sand was at stake? At once, under the stately figure of its master, Xie Tianyang, the burrowing mouse was compelled to dig to Golden Spring Pool. In 15 minutes, a new pattern was beginning to emerge underneath the Golden Spring Pool, all according to Zhua Fan's grand design. Yet the elder stationed at the Golden Spring Pool was oblivious to everything that was happening right underneath his nose. This was only the beginning for the oppressed burrowing mouse, which was forced to work itself into the ground. The only time the trio saw it was when it came for the next spirit stone. It could take it at first, but once it was finished with its first 100 stones, it was dog-tired that even its fur was slick with sweat around the 500th trip. The critter was gasping. Xuan Ningxiang's heart was bleeding, wanting to give the poor guy a rest. But Zhua Fan and Xie Tianyang stood like demons, just like a landlord overlooking his peasants, making sure to leave them dead tired, especially Xie Tianyang. Having nothing but diamond sand in his head, he had no time to mind trifles like getting his spirit animal killed from overworking. This resulted with the burrowing mouse making trip after trip, and Xuan Ningxiang giving it a sip of water on the sly out of pity. The only thing that she could do to ease its hell in the eyes of the little guy. She became a goddess. It was starting to hate itself for choosing poorly. Its owner just heard Demon King Zhua Fan's 2 cents and was hooked into sending it to its death. When it came out for the final time, it was close to breathing its last. Xuan Ningxiang hugged it and consoled it, letting it feel the joy of a survivor. Zhua Fan smiled at Xie Tianyang. See, I told you it'd be fine. Xie Tianyang sighed. Yeah, but this guy would hate me to the bone after this. No choice. If we wanted to have the array in place within 3 days, the only choice was its sacrifice. Zhua Fan shrugged. If he'd really died of work, then it wouldn't be treated as a first-level spiritual beast. Zhua Fan stood up, and his hand flashed as he deployed another array on the stream's bank. With a hand sign, the spirit stones in the ground lit up. An invisible ripple spread out, and the two arrays, thousands of miles from each other, were now connected at almost the same time. The elder at the Golden Spring Pool shivered and opened his eyes with suspicion. What's going on? Why am I restless all of a sudden? Next to the stream, Zhua Fan revealed a wicked grin. Only one more push. When the diamond sand erupts, Hell Valley's elder would get the shock of his life. Hey, that you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.